Jump to one. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's me, Jackson Wheat, and we're going to talk about stuff and things today. Uh, so I have a guest on. Hello, guest. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk about both stuff and things.
Well, that's great. My guests usually are. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Erica. I go by Gutsick Gibbon on YouTube. I love all things biology. Let's see, I got my undergraduate degree, a BSA in animal science, picked up a biology and an anthropology minor, and I'm currently getting my master's of research over in the UK in primatology. So, going to be leaving to go get my data collection done here in mid-February, March-ish, which I'm excited for. It's going to be great, hopefully.
That does sound pretty exciting. Uh, do you know what in particular you're going to be working on?
Yeah, I'm studying intervention behavior as sort of the precursor of spite in pig-tailed macaques in peninsular Malaysia. So, studying troops of macaques over there. I love macaques. They're very mean. Perfect to study spite in.
In Malaysia.
Yes.
So you're going to be doing a bit of traveling, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. But, I'm hoping the internet connection will be all right. For my data's sake, or else it's going to be pen and paper. So my handwriting is abysmal, so that's going to be terrible to go back through. So hopefully it'll be all right. But the field site's fine. It's no worse than any other field site. I have a colleague going to Namibia, and she's doing sleeping in a tent for 3 months, so that she's like carrying around on her back. And I was like, man, I do not have the lower back strength for that.
Yeah, that's crazy. I worked at the museum at LSU Baton Rouge. The professor I worked for, who was a mammologist, uh, would go to a Sulawesi and find.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're constantly finding like new species of amphibians and reptiles and mammals there.
Well, between Malaysia and Indonesia, right? It's like this perfect biodiversity hotspot, And then you've got Thailand and Laos, and they're all relatively, I mean, Indonesia less so, but they've got some havens there that are still thriving, And
Absolutely.
so the working under Dr. Nadine Ruppert, she's got an awesome paper out there on basically this opportunistic behavior in these pig-tailed macaques. They've started eating the rats that infest the plantations. And so there's this horrific picture of this macaque with like this rat halfway out of its out of its mouth, and like the caption is like, opportunistic behavior in macaca nemostrinas, and it's like all hopeful and opportunistic, and it's just like this rat massacre. So it's a great paper. I recommend it. It's cool.
That's hilarious. I'll see if I can remember that at um at the end of this, and I'll try to find it. Uh,
Yeah. Just
and
rat eating macaques. It'll pop up. I promise.
rat eating macaques. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's really neat. Anthropology is an awesome subject. I mean, after all, you know, we are part of the anthropology thing, so that whole area.
That we are. Yeah, it's funny. The more you look at primates, the more time you spend watching primates do primate things, the more you're like, "Oh, look at that. He's scratching his foot just like a human would." But the reality is, we just scratch our feet like macaques scratch their feet. So,
Right.
small world, huh?
Indeed. Yeah. We have in the chat right now Shannon Q and Beach. Hey guys, how you doing?
Awesome. That
Yeah.
is sick.
Would you say it's gut sick?
I would not say that.
Oh, yikes. Well, in that case,
That is,
for anyone watching, if you have any questions, we can try to field them. Um, if you want.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I did take an anthropology class at LSU. It was under Dr. Robert Tague.
Oh,
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, he's a pretty neat guy. I'm friends with the anthropologist on Twitter, Godfrey World. He's a pretty cool guy. He'd be neat. He's
Hmm.
neat to talk to. I've had him on, so you know,
Yeah,
he's a fun
that would
person to
be
talk to.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Um, my evolutionary human evolution and let's see, yeah, human evolution professor, and then he took us on. I studied abroad and did a summer in like Tanzania. Just got to see Olduvai Gorge. It was awesome, and we went to Gombe, which was like what kind of inspired the whole. Oh my God, primates are awesome. But he's Dr. Peter Unger, so he's a big tooth microwear guy for the hominids. He's got some great Paranthropus papers on like pitting in the molars for like these megadont primates, and he's an awesome guy. And a small world because when I went over to the UK, the anthropology professor there, he Todd Ray, he went to Stony Brook with my other professor. So I was like, you don't by chance know Peter Unger? And he was like, oh, you tell that bastard I say hello. And I was like, okay, I will. I'll give him the message. So I told him, and Peter Unger was like, oh, that bastard. Oh my God. It gets wild in the anthropology world.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. They have fist fights over all sorts of things. This is Homo ergaster. No, it's Homo erectus. Ah.
Yep. Oh yeah, that and between that and the habilis robustus,
Oh
or
yeah.
sorry, rudolfensis, habilis rudolfensis
Mhm.
debate. Are we dealing with just this really cool, awesome, diverse group of Homo habilis that's really similar to erectus, and that there's just all these different shapes and forms, or is it Homo rudolfensis? And my anthropology professor would be rolling because he was like, if he were dead, he would be rolling in his grave. And he was like, he taught us, he was like, I'm pretty sure it's just habilis, so that's what we're gonna go with. And I've since come to be more a part of the well, maybe it is its own species, but then you reach into the whole like it's just a gradient anyways. Like we're
Sure.
arbitrarily feasting these labels on in hopes that it makes sense. And I think it's useful for conversation, but ooh, I don't know. It gets dicey.
Yeah. Yeah, that is fair. Those are all very fair points. I really don't see Rudolfensis as a taxon brought up in the literature very often. They pretty much always just defer to Habilis.
Yeah, it's more of a brain case thing. So I'm not really sure. I mean, my stance is pretty much you're coming from, the Australopithecines, right, which are these sexually dimorphic, um, about I think 400 to around 500, square centimeter brain case, and then you get to habilis where you've got 600, 700 depending on the specimen. So my question would be, all right, like, are we dealing with sexual dimorphism with the brain case difference between Rudolfensis and Habilis? Because it's about 100, 150 square centimeter volume difference. Is it sexual dimorphism or are we dealing with speciation? Primates are killer for that because they're just all so dimorphic. And then some of them, like the artipiths, aren't at all. So you never know what you're dealing with. And especially with the hominids, because the canines are all reduced, so you can't sex them by the canines anymore. So it's like it's just a big cluster.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Um, we have some questions from the audience and comments. Also, uh, Kokichi Uma says, "Can you bring up Andrew Yang?" I'm not really familiar. You'll have to.
Yeah,
Oh, do you?
I mean, are we speaking of the political candidate Andrew Yang?
Oh, oh, I thought this was a. Is this a person? Oh, I thought this was relevant to. I
Hold
didn't know.
on.
I didn't think about that. I figured it'd be like an anthropologist person or something. No, we're not
It's
endorsing political candidates here. Sorry.
yeah.
Um,
I genuinely wasn't sure. I mean,
I didn't.
I
That flew completely over my head. I was thinking this was like a anthropologist or something. Next, moving on to Shannon Q. What's the hypothetical construct employed to operationalize behavior patterns in primates?
oh man, pick a species. I mean, or even a genera. There's so much diversity across primates because you've got these super despotic species, and this goes for the catarrhines, the platyrrhines, pretty much any of the social primates that would be considered haplorhines. So, for instance, if you were looking at like the genus Papio, right, which are your baboons, they have a vastly different social structure, and therefore you would use different techniques than if you were dealing with the egalitarian Barbary macaques, right? So it's like those guys are really sweet to each other. The male Barbary macaques are a pleasure to watch. I got to go to Trento Monkey Force in the UK, and the males carry around the young of females because they're multi-male, multi-female society, so they don't know, paternity is unsure.
Uh-huh.
But they're not really that big on infanticide, which is kind of unique for primates because the males get pretty pissy when they're being pestered by a youngster, and then they for sure don't know that this youngster is theirs. But the Barbary macaques, it's actually kind of hard to sex them when you're just observing because the males just carry the babies around just like the females do. And their dimorphism isn't as extreme as genus Papio, right? Like the baboons, it's this huge difference, but macaques still there, but less so. So, and that's just in, your terrestrial monkeys, right? You get into like squirrel monkeys, they're weird. You've got one genera that lives in one part of South America where, it's female dominated, and then the complete opposite in another genera that's like one country away.
Right.
So it's weird, but it is fun to look into the way that these guys roll.
Yeah, they bringing up the Barbary macaques. I kind of remind. I believe there's a platyrrhine that is also like that, where it's multiple males to one female, and the males carry the offspring around because no one's sure who is the father. That is the question.
Yeah, I think don't quote me on this, but I think it might be a capuchin, one of the capuchins, white-faced, or I think maybe the brown-faced capuchins.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're one of the few like polyandrous groups where the females basically just live in, instead of a dyadic pair, you're living in triads. So the female,
Right.
she'll have sex with two males, and you're right, neither of the males know who's the dad, so they just both put in all their energy. It's a very interesting strategy.
Yeah, interesting is one way to put it, I guess.
Yeah, and you get hosed if you're a male, that's for sure. But then you see the opposite in, Hamadryas Baboons. Are we allowed to swear on this show, or should we keep it PG?
You're fine. No, I did a whole video on the penis bone. I think we're fine.
Well, Hamadryas baboons are shitty. Like of all the primates you don't want to be as a female, Hamadryas is the one that you really, really, really don't want to be. They are just absolute jerks to each other. I mean, it's just like harem herding, and then you've got the gelada, Therapithecus gelada. Those are those ones that flip their lips up to show their big canines.
Mm-hmm.
And in those ones, you've got a male, and he tries to appease his harem of females. And if they get pissed off with him, one, they'll attack him, and then two, if another male comes on the scene, they'll just start copulating with him, like right in front of the original dominant male, and then they all gang up on him. So it's like, and these guys, yeah, these guys are like, baboons are weird. I'm kind of scared of them. When I was in Tanzania, we would wash our clothes in the Lake Tanganyika, which is that really long lake.
You're washing your clothes in Lake Tanganyika with the cichlid. Oh,
the snails. Yeah. We washed them very carefully so we wouldn't touch the snails. But we'd go out and we'd wash our stuff. And I remember the director who was there was like, listen, he's like, if you hang up your clothes, keep an eye on them because, they're olive baboons all over the place and they will steal your shit. Yeah. And I was kind of like, oh, come on. Like,
they're just so cute.
They're so cute. They're not going to do anything. Right. Yeah. Then we were all like washing our clothes, and one of my friends turns over and, oh, fuck. That baboon's got my hat. And there's a baboon it's a young juvenile male, and he's reached up and he's got her hat. And of course she goes shooting across the pebbly beach trying to catch this guy. And finally she kind of gets him up against a tree, not like literally holding it, but she kind of gets him and he abandons the hat. And she looks back and there's two more about to grab the rest of her stuff. And she was like, I am not putting up with this for one more second. I'm going inside. And I was like, dude, it's the jungle. Like, there's going to be baboons. They might take your shit. But secretly, I was just glad it wasn't my stuff.
I bet. My botany professor was, he said, like, they went, I don't remember what country in Africa it was, but someone had bought, like, I guess you can buy beer where the yeast is like still fermenting after you buy it or whatever. But he says it's like they were all in their little house or whatever, and they're just about to go to sleep, and he sees the bottle, and he says he like packed up his stuff, went outside and set his like stuff out, and then a few minutes later he heard pop because the pressure had built up within it, and so it exploded and covered him. And you know, knowing who he is, I was like, that sounds exactly like something you would do, but only you would not tell everyone else. Just take the bottle out.
Foiled again by my own alcohol.
It's like, wouldn't it have been easier to just go, whoosh, oh, problem solved. No, I'm going to let them all suffer.
Man, misfortune hits a little different when you're overseas too, because you're so out of your element,
Sure.
that it's like, we were at, I think it was Tarangire, one of the state parks. They've got a ton of really cool elephants. Tanzania is awesome about I think their country's like 22% national park.
Wow.
Which is awesome. Tarangire is where you get to see a lot of big African elephants, and they haven't been hit very hard by the poaching, so their tusks are still massive and they're really majestic. But they also have vervet monkeys, and vervet monkeys are like uber mischievous.
Yeah.
So we're all sitting at the top having like our little packed lunch, and I was sitting with my arms over the fence, like pondering, here I am in the cradle of humanity, me, Homo sapiens, and I'm drinking my mango juice box. And this little vervet monkey kind of shimmies down from the branch, and we're kind of looking at each other, and I'm like, this moment, this connection, primate and primate. And dude, she reaches out and she snatches the mango juice box right out of my hand and just shoots up the nearest tree and starts prying the side open with her canines. And here I am standing there like the dumbass primate that I am.
Like, what just happened?
Bamboozled by this vervet monkey. And I was like, I am a fool.
I hate nature.
Hurts you. Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty great. Man.
It's a cool place for herpetology. I would recommend.
Oh, I bet.
Like Tanzania for herping, if you want to. I have friends who are not involved. Friends who are not involved in biology. You mentioned herpetology, and every answer, it's never original, it's never funny. Oh, is that the study of herpes? Oh my god, is that the study of herpes?
People say that?
Yeah, dude. And every time I'm like, wow, that's nice. Really, really clever wordplay.
You must have worked in them all night. Got to bed around 3:30.
Yeah, burn the candle at both ends to come up with that one.
Yeah, herpetology is pretty neat. I think I'd prefer probably general mammalogy. I don't have the fortitude to be a paleontologist, so.
Oh, me either. I love it. I love it from afar. I love to read about paleontology, but being a paleontologist is another story.
Like, we're going to camp for 6 months in sub-Saharan Africa or the Arctic. I'm like, no.
The Shubins of the world who spend incredible amounts of time hunting for incredible transitional forms in Greenland, and you're like, let me look at my list of places that I don't ever want to go. Right. And it's like, or stay for long periods. I'd like to see Greenland, but stay for long periods of time. Greenland's like close to the top of that list, right? Like you got to have some mental and physical fortitude. I'm with you on that.
I met this paleontologist. Clark, Dr. Julia Clark.
Oh, cool.
She did, or she came to at LSU because I guess I don't know about other universities, but LSU would have like they would host or have speakers, come and give a talk on like Friday or whatever, just on whatever their field is. And she was like, I did research in Antarctica. I was digging in the Cretaceous Paleogene transitional zone in Antarctica. It's like, wow, that sounds terrible. She was fascinating to talk to.
Yeah, I bet. What'd she end up finding up there?
One of the things she is predominantly known for, she found this bird named vague avis. There's this little island. Go.
No, I know the bird you're talking about. It's like almost it has so many derived traits, right? But it still maintains. Am I thinking of Ichthyornis, or is that the one with the little studs of teeth
I think I
still?
take the Ornis.
I think you're right. Okay.
Vegavis is kind of intriguing because it is the oldest bird. I think it's 75 million years old or so. That has it's preserved with its syrinx intact. There are like
Oh,
no other fossil birds that ancient with a syrinx still intact.
so they know what it maybe sounded like.
Possibly. I don't remember if she. I don't remember if she talked about that. She was just more like we knew birds had, or we assumed birds had it, and this is confirmation that they did in fact have it. She also did research on, was it the melanosomes in Microraptor, how they're like iridescent black. I believe that's part of her research.
Yeah, I had a conversation with an IRL creationist coworker of mine. And he was of the school, he
Big
was of
yikes.
that, yeah, big yikes. He's such a nice guy. It killed me. I was like, dude, you could be such a good biologist. Please, please listen to conventional science. It was not to be though. But he was of the camp, right, where he was like the Dr. Mintons of the world, right? Where he's like, oh, it's just those feathers. It's
Don't
just
even get me started.
collagen. It's just collagen. And I'm like, oh, it's iridescent collagen that we can, get the exact color spectrum from. You're right. Okay, that makes sense. I'm with you.
For this book that RJ and I are about to put out, we had to read several chapters by Minton. Oh my god! And the next book is going to have even more chapters written by Minton. That
That guy, dude, he kills me with that. Between I mean, how can you still be with the number of fossils that we're pulling up, right? And the freaking dinosaur tail in amber that's just covered in feathers.
Oh no, Minton is a dunce. He can't.
Yeah,
He's yeah. It's painful like to read his work
he's
because
a mess.
he's a what is it? He's got his degree is in cell biology, so he's
Mm.
like he's a legitimate scientist, or he has a legitimate degree. Let me put it that way. Uh, he has a legitimate degree, but he doesn't use it very well because he doesn't even really seem to uh, show like a great understanding of like the the function of different uh, organs and things like that, and it's like really weird to read his stuff. And then of course he goes on paleontology and he screws that up royally.
Yeah, creationists don't really have a very good handle in general on the whole, like,
Everything.
yeah, yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Actually, that's more straight to the point. Mine, I was going to say like, anybody in any given field, especially those who are, these your experts in the field are going to be the first person to tell you. They're like, all right, if I study mammal transitionals, um, that's what I do. I study mammal transitionals, and if you ask me about something else, I'm going to say, go check with the experts on that. I can give you my cursory knowledge, but that's it. But man, you've got guys like, Jeanson coming out and writing books on phylogeny when the dude's not a geneticist,
Right.
It blows my mind, and it's this argument from authority that only they get to use. When you're like, hey, the entire scientific community has a consensus on evolutionary theory, that's not okay. But they're allowed to point to any given scientist, even hacks like Jeanson,
Yeah.
who are recorded as saying that they're gonna like. This is paraphrasing it, but it's like lying for Jesus, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. Jensen's he's an intriguing one because he has actually written that creationism predicts transitional fossils just as much as evolution does. And when I read that, I said, "Well, we're done, folks.
yeah,
We've
pack it
won.
up.
We've won. We're done. We can go home now."
Yeah, pack it up. And wasn't the basis, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the basis on like, well, humans are intelligent designers and we make amphibious vehicles that are both boats and cars. So why wouldn't God make transitional organisms.
Well, you're probably right. They just call them chimeras. It's like at what point? How do you distinguish a chimera from a legitimate precursor? Because you kind of get to a point where it's just the lines are completely blurred.
Yeah, and that really is it. I mean, they really don't like it when you bring it up, but if the general feeling I get is that their argument has kind of boiled down to, yes, everything does point to evolutionary theory, but even if it all points in that direction, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is indeed the case.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like literally the opposite of everything science has ever done. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially reading work or people like Todd Wood and Kurt Wise. They're kind of in the group that's like, yeah, well, you could interpret all of this as evidence for evolution, or it could be creationism.
But maybe you're wrong and I'm right.
It's like, or maybe it's not.
It's that the donkey quote. It's like, you are nitpicking and biased. I win. Bye bye.
Which kind of brings us, speaking of creationism, that brings us to the wonderful chat that you had with Hovind the Elder. So
yeah,
how did that go?
Wonderful chat. I had a really good time. I was really frustrated for most of it.
Yeah,
because Hovind Kent he's very good at dodging the question, which leads me to believe that he understands the material enough to know that this particular is not one that he wants to remain on. So then he goes and, for instance, he's been told how many times that you can't use inorganic material, inorganic designs, and then relate it to something that sexually or asexually reproduces. Any kind of genetic recombination that can occur on its own, the design element is kind of out the window. But he still uses it, and he still doesn't seem to understand the law of monophily, or that populations, not individuals, evolve, and he thinks that by acknowledging that, by saying something like, oh, well, I've been told, now the evolutionists, what they say is that it's not populations, or it's populations, but not individuals that evolve, but a dog still always produces a dog. Whales have always been in the water. And you want to be like, Kent, my guy, yes, we agree. A dog is always a canid will never become something that is not a canid.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a specialization is the wrong word, but it's like a categories game, right? Sure. Things just get more specific. Species, imagine that, but man, and I've seen your debates with Kent as well, both on.
I'm sorry. Wait, you watched both of them?
Let me tell you.
The first one and the one I did on Modern Day Debate?
Yes. Ooh. Let me tell you. Let me tell you something, Jackson. Let me tell you something. I've consumed an inordinate amount of Kent Hovind material in the past month. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I could have watched one debate and gotten the same general vibe. Because it's the same argument every time.
Yep.
He's got little variations. If you're talking about the flood, then he brings up, all sorts of different nonsense that makes zero sense in the realm of physics or geology or astronomy. And then he's got his whole evolution side, which is like a little dovetailed branch off of that. But they'll always meet at some point in the debate. He'll always bring up something from the other to obfuscate from the topic. And I don't know. When I was watching your debates, I could feel the same frustration that I felt when I was debating him. Debating, because Kent's never going to change his mind. The hope is that someone watching might be like, wait a second, maybe some of Kent's arguments are garbage.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, you're right because he can't do anything else. I mean, if he got a job doing something, he'd be like a grocery bagger or something like that. He couldn't. He doesn't have the ability to do anything else. And so this is his whole gig. Right?
So he could be a mean car salesman, I feel like.
Maybe.
Or like CBD oil or something, right?
He could, Yeah, he could.
Those legitimate doctors. A cancer cell is always going to produce a cancer cell, okay? That's why we gotta use CBD oil. This guy.
you you do the accent a little too well.
Honest to God, it's because I've consumed so much Kent media.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
It's I I don't know how RJ made me watch a lecture in numerous quotes that Kent gave regarding the what he calls his Hoven theory, which he actually stole from Walt Brown.
The
Um,
hydroplate. The
yeah,
hydroplate. God
it's
damn.
funny because he doesn't even the thing he attaches his name to isn't his. He stole it from someone else. You know, he has like no original. There are no original thoughts in his head. It's hilarious. But I watched it, and he says some things that are just flabbergasting. Like uh, he, he said paleomagnetic reversals don't exist.
As if
Which
you can't look at the iron, right? I mean, you can look. It's straight up recorded in the rocks, Kent. You
yeah,
know?
yeah. Andrew Snelling wrote a whole article on Antares and Genesis. He's like, yeah, they exist. There was probably this fluctuation was probably happening during the flood, but they obviously exist because we can like pick them up and lick them. You know, we know they exist. There, it's like, here
Oh,
you go, Kent.
smelling. Yeah, and what kills me too, I this is a little bit mean of me, but I love it when people debate Kent and they bring up the fact that Answers in Genesis has like totally separated themselves from anything Hovind related.
Hmm.
Because that is such a dig. Like that's such a creationist roast.
Even his own son is with Answers in Genesis.
I know. I and not down at Dinosaur Adventureland. Come on now, we'll give you a tour. Lenox, Alabama.
Yeah, for the second or the I guess the debate because the first one was really just kind of a chat. The debate that I did with him, I wanted to just bury him in data because I know or everyone knows he has no background. I don't think he knows enough to know where not to go. RJ has this concept of the Tortugan, or basically once you, yeah, it's a great idea. It's like they don't want to think about things they don't want to think about. So once you bump into an idea that in essence just blows to smithereens your position, your brain kind of turns off,
Yeah.
and they
Huh.
just kind of smile and go, yeah, ha ha ha. And that's what he's doing probably. I don't think he's smart enough to have like a conception of index fossils and really understand that they can't exist in a flood world.
Or ring species. Like he talks
Right.
about hybrids constantly.
Yeah.
And he's got zero concept of ring species at all. Zero concept of genetics. Like I rewatched my debate with him, and I got frustrated again watching. Like I was like,
Residual.
yeah, I was watching it and I was like, my blood pressure is already going up. Like this is painful for me because that first, I don't know if you saw all of it or what you remember from it or whatever, but my whole point, like my whole initial point was like, all right, because Kent likes to be like, genetics is so complicated. We don't know what, related. You can't prove it's related. And my answer is always like, okay, well, there's no way that you can classify humans as anything in the tree,
Now I'm
in
getting
the tree of life,
frustrated.
the bush of life, and not include them in primates and in the hominoids and the hominids and catarrhines, whatever. And that goes for genetics as well, because a paternity test is just a dumbed down genomic comparison. Like it's literally a short version of that.
Right. Absolutely.
So I kept being like, okay, Kent, like tell me where we draw the line. Where is it different? Because you recognize that if you compare my genome with my mom's, they're going to be really, really similar. If you compare my genome with my grandmother's, really, really similar. Maybe not as similar as me and my mom, but still really damn similar.
Right.
So why does it work within species and not between species? Where do you draw the line? Well, Eric, let me ask you this. Do you believe that you are related to a mosquito? Kent, answer the question. Like, yeah, first of all, yes,
Yeah.
I do. But
we're all bilaterians. So.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And eukaryotes and members of Animalia. It's like, Okay, Kent, let's take it back. Okay, all right, we're back. All right, Kent, where do you draw the line between my genome and my mother's versus me and a chimpanzee? Where do you draw that line? Well, in the Green Mile. In the what?
In a movie?
In the what? Kent, what are you doing, my guy?
Well, you're
And
yeah.
yeah, you'd be there all day if you keep pushing him on the same point over and over again. And all he can do is just move it to the most absurd sounding, relationship for the people who are watching, who are his followers, because to them, like, humans and chimps, wow, they really are pretty similar. But mosquitoes? You think I'm related to a little arthropod that big?
I'm related to a mosquito.
You think pine trees and whales are related? Yes.
Did a pine tree ever give birth to an elephant?
Yes. Kent, law of monophyly, guy, come on. What do you? And it's like, I think it was the 1989 paper. I think it's 89 with the Drosophila with the maltose and sucrose. I think.
Ooh, is that the one on Drosophila pseudoobscura where they have them?
Reproductive isolation.
Yeah, which is based on their gut bacteria.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I remember that paper.
Yeah, and it's a sick paper. And I was like, Kent, he's like, oh, they're still flies. I got the next slide, the title of the slide. Yes, they're still flies in quotation marks. Kent, if one of those Drosophila flies, right, you give it 10 million years, it evolves into a 10-legged fly as big as my fist. It's still a dipteran. Like, what is that? Where is there? And that's where I know we mentioned this in correspondence, but it's like, those are the moments where I'm like, man, how sincere is this? Like, I really want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it is hard.
Yeah. In the comments, Terry James points out this is why Aaron kept interrupting him, and that's exactly what I was thinking. You were giving him the phylogeny challenge in a different version. That because that is, as Aaron pointed out, the phylogeny challenge is the killer of creationism. You get to a point where you or the creationist can't differentiate consistently between two different data sets, and so once they realize that, they basically shut down. And I think Kent keeps kind of bumping into that wall where it's like, okay, if I allow these to be related, does that mean these other things are related? And if these are related, does that mean these other things are related? And so it just keeps getting more and more. And that's there's actually ping pong matches among creationists over at AIG because the horse sequence is one of them, where Todd Wood and a couple of other guys wrote a paper saying the modern equus is related to Hyracotherium. So you have the whole sequence is one Barraman. And they're like, okay, yeah, it's just the horse Barraman, that's fine. But other creationists are like, no, equus is not related to Hyracotherium. There's too much variability there. And, then if we allow that, are they also related to Homo galax and the tapirs and Hyraceus and the rhinos and the Calicotheres? And, it just keeps going out and out and out.
Yeah, you're dead on. And honestly, like, that's what makes Aaron's debates so satisfying, because he won't let him get away with anything.
Right.
And like, I wish I had like that that chutzpah to just be like, but I'm always like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but man, Aaron's like, he just decimates. No one survives. There are no survivors.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the phylogeny challenge, they do the same thing with within hominids. They no one knows where to put habilis. No one knows where to put, because then you've got problems with sediba, right? Because Australopithecus sediba,
Right.
Homo habilis, ooh, they're getting pretty close. And then they've got problems with Naledi. They're like, oh, and some of them are like, Naledi's fully human. Okay, have you seen Naledi's brain case? Have you seen Naledi's zygomatics and the prognathism that's there? Have you seen where her shoulders are, how they rotate? I don't understand. I mean, I do. Unfortunately, feel like I kind of get the gist of the logic. It's this white knuckling to an idea, but it's so damn frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's here's a fun question. What is your least favorite Kent Hovind TM I guess meme?
My least favorite meme. Um.
Like his little
Oh, I got one
isms
for
that
you.
he does.
He told me I need to give, or I need to ask the university for my money back, and I almost snapped in that instant because I thought I'm gonna say this very. I'm gonna say this politely. I'm gonna be as very kind about this as possible. Um, I'm still trying
Oh
to think
my
about how to word
goodness.
this without it coming out too mean. It's like, you know, um, I I don't know if Kent has ever worked a day in his life, um, but or ever had any schooling whatsoever. I'm not even sure if he like ever passed a driving test. Um, but some of us have to put in hours and weeks and months and years to to get the bare minimum done for a piece of paper. Did it. Kent has
Yeah.
never and will never ever know what that feels like because he has no conception of anything. And so, and that was the refined version, by
You're
the way.
yeah. I I got project was ripped apart by my supervisor. And sorry, my connect. Can you still hear me and everything? My connection kind of went wonky for a
It's not
sec.
yours, it's mine.
Okay. Okay, as long as we're good. Yeah, I just got a project proposal ripped apart by my supervisor who was like, this project proposal is not good enough and you need to do it again. And that was after I'd spent, 6+ hours writing my proposal that's several pages long with, whatever, 50 plus references. And I'm like, oh man. And then I hear in the same, general time span, like the same week or whatever, from some cohorts on the subreddit debate evolution, where it's just people who accept evolution and bust newcomers. But we were talking, and he was like, yeah, I heard, I don't know this for certain, but that Kent Hovind's thesis begins with, "Hello, my name is Kent Hovind," and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that I need to like get a defibrillator because I think I'm getting palpitations hearing that.
Hello, my
It's
name is Kent Hovind.
hello, my name is Kent Hovind, and I'm thinking, like, can you imagine in any legitimate, like, credentialed university, even even getting the thought in your head to begin anything in that fashion? Like, I think my professor would come over to my house and kick my ass.
Right. I taught high school science for 15 years.
Oh, that's what I was going to say my thing was. That's my least favorite one because it's this false statement of authority, and I'm always like,
But did you though?
that's X to doubt because I really have a hard time with that. Because how can you even teach biology and not teach evolutionary theory? It's got to be like the same thing they do at AIG, where they basically teach it, but they just call it different things.
It's
Like,
variation or
yeah,
adaptation,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Like it's got to be because you wouldn't pass any kind of entrance exam or standardized test that has a science portion without even a cursory understanding of evolutionary theory.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't. Oh,
It, it
Kent.
is too integral to modern biology, and so that's the most the creationists can do is just kind of snark at it from the sidelines, and they write their little blog posts and they say, "Oh, a new paper," and but it's there's a reason that 99% of the Earth and life science people are not creationists. So
Yeah. I saw this video by a very small YouTuber. I think his name is Megalomania. He's got a little cat for his icon. I stumbled across one of his videos today because I was just looking into some of the replacing Darwin literature and commentaries online, And he did a fun little activity on his channel where he was like, let's look at the number of citations. He got on Google Scholar. He's like, Nathaniel Jensen, most recent paper. And it's like cited by 5. And it's like 4 out of 5 are creationist journals. 1 out of 5 is this random like Korean dude. And I was like, I'm very curious what the site was. So then he's like, okay, let's compare that to like one of the most, let's just pick an obscure topic and see how many citations we get. So he Googles penile entrapment.
Nice.
Like on Google Scholar, paper, 20 citations. And I'm like, that's 4 times. Nathaniel Jensen has less citations by a magnitude
penile entrapment
compared to penile entrapment, which is like baby sticking like their genitals where they don't belong. Penile entrapment.
Oh my
and
god!
I was like, that pretty sums it up.
That reminds me that the very first chapter of the book with RJ, we cite a paper that appears in a journal on it's just an entire journal on lactal memories. The entire journal just on lactal memories. That's it. And it was regarding monotremes, because they have the milk pads. Turns out the milk pads actually aren't a primitive feature; they're a derived feature. They had nipples originally that became the milk pads.
Are they just like basically an areola with like really high surface area, or is it like completely unique structure? Do you know? I'm just really curious.
I don't remember it. I don't remember from what the paper said, but I'm sure I could go find it. I could probably send it to you. So
yeah, I love though, like every pick any subject in science. There's someone out there who's studying it. You know, I can almost guarantee they're getting more citations than Nathaniel Jensen, or as Georgia Purdom for some reason pronounces it Jensen.
Jensen, yeah.
And she kills me too. Georgia kills me, and this is mean, but she needs better bangs on the front. That's like a thing to say. But
now we're getting personal.
I know, and that's a really mean thing to say, because there's plenty of things that I'm sure people can make fun of about me. There are plenty of things I make fun of about myself, but I love it when people let me know so that I can fix them. Because God knows we all have our quirks, but honestly, it doesn't help that Georgia gets on the stage and starts talking about catastrophic plate tectonics. And then it just makes me a little vindictive.
Yeah, I've actually, RJ and I did actually read a couple of her chapters. She wrote one on beneficial mutations, and it is pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. Because she again, has a legitimate degree. She has actually contributed to the technical literature. I believe it's regarding cancer. She does some work in oncology a long time ago. But her article is just threadbare. She barely cites any sources. She quote mines technical citations. It's terrible. But you're right. They have to kind of, at AIG, they have to kind of put them into different little categories. They say, okay, yeah, you're a geneticist, but you can go talk about geology, because Andrew Snelling is out this week, so we don't have a geologist.
Our one guy, our geology guy.
Yeah, our one guy.
Who frequently references conventional geology in his non-AIG papers. So it's fine.
It's all good.
It's fine.
Don't worry about it.
Georgia, like, so me and a couple of guys, I'm gonna put a video up on my channel in like a little bit. I've got to edit it because it's like wickedly long, but we covered a video where we were basically just tearing apart this Georgia, AIG seminar where she talks about, Noah's flood and the diversity, and it kills me, oh my god, because she starts talking about fitting all the animals on the ark and the kinds, and she's like, what do you think the group of animals I get most asked about? And then some smartass in the audience is like, unicorns, and she's like, ha ha ha, those are rhinoceroses. And I'm like, oh whoa, Georgia.
She's actually right.
I was like, oh, whoa, Georgia hitting us with a little reality. And then she goes, no, dinosaurs. She goes, but there's actually not that many different kinds of dinosaurs. So wouldn't, kinds, families, which is how AIG sometimes equates them to be.
Yeah.
But then she starts talking about how it's not going to be an issue because there's not that many families of dinosaurs. Because for some reason she's assuming that we have a genuinely reflective fossil record when it comes to the dinosaurs. But she never covers anything from the Triassic or the Permian, nothing on the temnospondyls, nothing on the weird synapsids or the
Nope.
therapsids or the cynodonts. I mean, where are you keeping all the members of Gorgonopsidae, Georgia? Where are the Gorgonops going? That's a family, you know? What about let's see, what would it be? Rhynchosaurs. I wrote it down because I thought they were cool. They're like these beaked
Yep.
archosaur-like. Yeah, yeah,
Like
they're like
Hyperadapidon. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, whoa, these first of all, these guys are awesome. Second of all, where's their spot?
They
You
don't
know?
get a spot. Well, this may come as absolutely no surprise to you, but creationists ignore over 90% of the available relevant technical data. So
Wow. I am absolutely floored.
it's a good thing you were sitting down for that one, right?
I know. I got my defibrillator in the room just in case. Because
I
that
mean,
could have put me out of commission.
we've been raising your blood pressure a number of times. So
Oh my god, I know. And just revisiting the Kent stuff in general, I know weirdly enough, he was supposed to come on Modern Day Debate and do like in their live tour or whatever that they're doing that James kind of has organized, which good for
oh,
him.
a live tour of the
Like
dinosaur thing.
no. James, like Modern Day Debate in general, is doing like hosting a bunch of live debates across Texas, I guess. I think
Oh,
they're
oh,
trying
okay. Oh,
think they're trying to get Aaron on board, but from if you stuck around the debate I had with Kent, when someone asked like, Kent, would you debate Aaron again? And I was like, oh please God, yes. And he
he
was like,
agreed to it.
well, what he said was only if he could have control over Aaron's mic. And I was like, okay,
I'm pretty
Kent.
sure Aaron would reach through the screen and like choke him if he
Like,
did that.
imagine Aaron on stage with Kent. Kent has control of Aaron's mic. He mutes him even once. Aaron's just like breaking off, taking off. He sets his mug of beer down and he just goes across the stage, takes Ken out.
Come here. I've met Aaron in person. He's a tall guy. I would not want
I
to tussle with Aaron.
yeah, I'm intimidated. He's because he knows his stuff.
Oh, he's
And
a big teddy bear. Just give him a hug. I hope he's not watching. Um, Josiah
I hope
Hansen
he is.
says, but you'll still be a primate even though Twitter. I don't know what that's a reference to.
I don't know. Yeah, you would. I mean, we're very highly adapted primates, and we do in fact use Twitter.
That's true.
But
It's yeah.
I've seen some cool videos of chimpanzees, common chimpanzees, troglodytes. They've been given Instagram on a phone, and they're scrolling through Instagram and like swiping quite dexterously, I may add, through videos of other chimpanzees and of course some bonobos. And I'm like,
That's that
this,
I remember years ago someone was like teaching dolphins how to use some kind of app on an iPad.
oh my god.
And I think it was like when iPads were fairly new because they were making a big thing about it. And but I don't remember anything ever coming of that. Of course, I don't really hear much about dolphins in the news anymore. Did they all leave? Did they say bye and thanks for all the fish? I don't know.
I think once all that stuff about how rapey they are came out, people got a lot less enthusiastic about
Them
dolphins.
and otters. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I
People
saw
say,
that,
ooh.
I was like, uh-oh.
They're like they have rape orgies. It's like, oh, yikes. Big
Yeah,
yikes.
they're not. I mean, dolphins really got the short end of the stick because it's like they really are very. I mean, depending on how you measure it. I also got really busted by
Measure
one
the
of
stick.
I got busted by one of my professors for uttering the phrase, I think some primates are more cognitively adept than some cetaceans. And he's like, well, what does cognitively adept mean?
Oh,
What do you
come on.
And I was like, okay, look, tool use? I don't know. Please don't flunk me out of class. I'm still recovering from the group selection thing. But yeah, they really are intelligent animals, and I'm very grateful that they don't have any dexterous means of manipulating objects around them
Oh my
because
god, yeah.
we could be. I'm sure there would be a lot of species on species crime if they were capable of that. Because I read we had to read a tool use paper for cognition, the seminar on cognition. But dolphins, female dolphins, I think they're either spinners or bottlenose. I don't remember which kind or which kind. Oh God. But they actually maneuver sponges onto their snouts and use the sponge covered snout to essentially prey on urchins that they wouldn't normally be able to. And they do it when they're pregnant because they have, I guess, a harder time hunting when they're pregnant. And when they calve, they
Get hankerings.
they teach their female young how to do this, but not their males, because it's like, okay, well, the males aren't going to be pregnant. They don't need to know how to do this. But it's like, so we've got protoculture and cetaceans, and these cetaceans also form rape gangs. So it's like, uh-oh. Reminds me that episode. You watch The Simpsons at all?
Not really, no.
No, there's a early episode of they do like Halloween themed episodes where like the dolphins rise up and conquer the world on it's like a Halloween themed episode and kick all the humans out to like swim in the oceans. And I was like, oh God, can you imagine dolphin society? Ugh.
Oh, well, thank you, Josiah Hansen. Let's see. I don't think I have any other questions at the moment. Yeah, I'm more of a Family Guy person.
Oh
sorry.
yeah.
My comedy palette is less refined. I'm sorry.
What about Futurama? You like Futurama?
I've seen like 3 episodes in total.
You gotta give Futurama a
I don't
chance.
watch a lot of shows. I think I watch 2 shows currently. One is The Mandalorian and the other is Rick and Morty.
Oh yeah, Rick and Morty is a good time too. I like Rick and Morty. I'm not really watching it. Well, I'm rewatching the X-Files because I love the X. I'm wearing an X-Files sweatshirt that I got
saw. Yeah.
because I love the X-Files. So I'm rewatching that right now. But other than that, honest to God, I don't have time. Like I envy the ability, and I guess I'm watching Man in the High Castle with my parents because we're just watching it. It's family bonding. You know how us primates are with our social bonding.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, we tend to do that.
Yeah, we do.
I saw a meme yesterday that said, "Unfortunately, there are humans in society."
I had a conversation with another, I guess like a colleague, someone else in my program the other day.
Mm-hmm.
We were it was the 2 of us and then a third friend who's into creative writing, so completely not at all in the same field as far as like what our interests are. And she was like, do you guys ever think of like how crazy it would be, like how much better the world would be if like a different species were in charge? And I was like, honestly, I've seen a lot of primates and we're probably doing about as well as any of them would do. Like, can you imagine society like based off of, silverbacks? It's just low-end gorillas and they're just like all in charge. I was like, I don't know if you've ever seen a silverback tantrum, but I don't think we're doing very poorly. But as far as primates go, I feel like we're par for the course.
Yeah. We do have an orange primate in charge, so there's that.
Yeah. And honest to God, this is so mean, but for me as an American being in the UK, Boris is the best thing to ever happen to me, because whenever anybody's like, "Ha, Trump sucks," I'm like, "But Boris."
But what about
rough?
Big yikes.
Yeah, big yikes. And of course, Boris has nothing on Trump at all, and I feel comfortable talking shit about Trump.
Hey, you know what they say? He's just getting started. So
he's too busy. He can't handle all this winning. The winning is just so stressful. I can't even imagine. But
Shannon says she watches Rick and Morty. It's a good show.
Shannon does?
Uh-huh.
I want to talk to Shannon sometime. Shannon, let's have a conversation.
The last time I had Shannon on my channel, we talked to this guy named Jungle Jargon. I'm sure she'll remember. I don't know if you've met him. He's another... you have, like, at the very... Oh. Okay. You have, like, a group of creationists at the bottom, like the dregs of creationism. It's like Nephilim free. Jungle Jargon, C Brown. It's like a couple of them. It's it's the ones that are just so out there you don't even know what they're talking about when they start talking. It's like you at least understand what Kent's going for when he talks.
Yeah.
These other guys, it's just like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I've heard Neff talk, and I've never seen like an adult human rage quit so many times and with so many different people. He gets mad. And when he's
Yeah.
not mad, he's relatively, at least in my experience, incoherent.
Yeah.
So I saw you and RJ's conversation with him in standing, and let me put it this way, my blood pressure went up there as well.
I I hadn't gotten mad in a talk in a long time, and that one made me. We actually did another. I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but we actually did. We went. Neff hosted another talk after that with Standing and RJ and me. RJ actually rage quit. He got mad. RJ got so mad he actually rage quit, and then I quit shortly thereafter because I was like, I don't need this anymore. Um, Go ahead.
I was gonna say, was that the one where Neff kept completely misrepresenting that same paper
Oh
over?
no! Did you watch that too?
Yeah.
Oh my
Listen,
god!
I'm supposed to have a debate with Standing, so now I'm consuming a lot of Standing media.
Oh
So I've seen a lot of Standing for Truth.
oh oh!
That was a
Did
very difficult
did
one.
I send you mine or I talked to Standing?
Yes.
Have you watched or did you watch that?
Yes, and I was also secondhand frustrated for you.
I thought that talk was great. Oh well, yeah. The well, first I'll get the Nephilim thing. He never. Oh, G man, that's another one. That's another one of the dregs.
Uh,
Um, and yeah. Nephilim. He kept. It was a paper on. It was like single nucleotide polymorphisms. Um, and he kept using this to say, how do you go from a chimpanzee to a human based on this paper? And we looked at, and so we found it. RJ and I found the paper. We looked at it. We just kind of skimmed it. I was like, this has nothing to do with what you're talking about. Neff was like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. Anyways, how do you go from a chimp to a human based on what this paper says? Neff, that doesn't say what you're saying it says. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. But how do you go? And he did that over and over and over. And we just kept explaining it to him. And eventually RJ lost it, and I don't blame him. I was like, this is just ridiculous. Yeah.
exhausting. Exhausting.
Yeah, because he's on camera on his own channel saying over and over again, you're right, it's not what it says, but it doesn't matter. Look at this paper. And so, it's like there's no hope for you.
And at that point, right, it's like it's so intentional, it's so willful, that you're like, you got to put your hands up and be like, look, I'm wasting not just your time but mine by being here.
Right. Oh, the talk with Standing. I actually enjoyed the talk with Standing because the team that helps me edit videos, RJ and Nestlig and Rational Mind and CRISPR, we all got together and wrote the intro, and we figured in advance. Standing is a one-trick pony. We knew he was going to talk about genetic entropy. That's all he does. He doesn't know anything else. Well, he doesn't even really know genetics because he doesn't have any background in that.
Yeah.
But so we were like, let's pre-write the rebuttal. And so because that's what Matt Dillahunty did in his debate with Cy-10 Bruggencate, where he like answers all of Cy's points in his rebuttal, which he wrote.
Like in advance. It's so script based. It's like I didn't even have to be here to have the rebuttal done.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You might as well. I mean, it's fun because it shows just how pathetic their arguments are when they
Right.
only have one line, and you already knew that.
Well, how'd Standing react?
He just kind of ignores it.
Mm.
He doesn't grasp. Um, he's great at stenography. He can rattle off the argument like faster than anybody. But the problem is he doesn't understand the argument. When Sanford says uh, Moto Kimura agrees that advantageous mutations are not selectable, and he cites this cites the 73 or whatever paper. No, he doesn't say that. In fact, he says literally the exact opposite. He says they're so over selected when if you only have like a single beneficial mutation every 100 or so generations, because it's mostly neutral and
Right.
deleterious ones.
Yeah.
But then the one beneficial one you get just completely overshadows everything else. And so it's not just selectable, it's like super selected. And
Yeah.
so, but Sanford says it's not selectable, and he cites the paper. And it's like, if you read the paper, it says the exact opposite. And so Standing will repeat that trope. Even Moto Kimura agrees, and all these other lines, but he doesn't understand it. He doesn't grasp the argument because he doesn't have he doesn't understand the basics of it. So
Well, and two, if you point out, all right, your source is incorrect, the choices are admit that you're wrong or change the subject. Okay, what's it gonna be?
right, yeah. Well, I got 5 minutes, so we're just gonna listen to elevator music for
Yeah,
the next five
exactly.
minutes.
God, Standing. Yeah, I'm sort of optimistic on the number of, just based off of how people are kind of reacting to the ilk of Answers in Genesis and the like, and how their conference numbers are going down and all this stuff. And it's that's not how you reach people, right? Like the Answers in Genesis way, and they present it like this God's word, like man's word type thing, and it's like, but it's your interpretation of a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's your interpretation, and you're in the minority by like a lot. Pick
Yeah,
any Catholic, and they're gonna disagree with you,
right.
or most, I guess, non-denoms. Like it's just the Southern Baptists. That's all you got. So, but what are you gonna do?
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
It's exhausting. It's fun, but it's exhausting. I know Standing too loves the H1N1, which is
Oh God,
completely not genetic entropy, but
because
okay.
he doesn't understand it at all. Like
I
he
know.
has no conception of what it's related to. So
Yeah, the it's so
yeah, that whooshing sound was the point
yeah,
going over his head.
exactly. And like, I get it, right? Like no one wants their deeply held opinion to be incorrect. Like they I imagine it feels like it's like a sunk cost fallacy, right? You've got
Sure.
a lot of time and energy sunk into being a creationist, and if you let all that go, well, you kind of just have wasted your time, haven't you? So,
Right. Yeah.
I from a psychology standpoint, not that I know anything about psychology, but I imagine from a psychology standpoint that would be somewhat common, right? Like changing your mind is hard. No one can
Sure.
make you change your mind. So,
Yeah, that's true. I just had a guy recently. I had one guy send me a video. And he said, "Hey, will you debunk this for me?" And so we did. We put a video together. It was on uh, the intelligent design videos I just did.
yeah.
But so I sent it back to the guy. I was like, "Okay, here you go." And he sent it to the person who had made the video, and the guy actually said, "This has challenged my understanding of intelligent design." So my
Mm,
hope is that maybe he'll come around and realize this is bogus.
yeah, that's
Evolution,
great.
yeah,
Well,
um,
and like no one is saying, right, like that you can't have whatever, like a faith and accept science, except for the
right,
creationists are the only ones saying that, and
right,
for very good reason. I mean, you've got the Francis Collins of the world, and Dobzhansky, who are like the big boys in some of the big boys in evolutionary biology and psychology, etc. And they're the first ones to tell you, like, dude, why is this mechanism of evolution any different from any of the mechanisms in physics or chemistry? Like, why are you having so much trouble with it? And I think it's because people just really don't like the idea that they're not special in nature. Like they just really don't like that idea. I think being an ape is awesome. That's cool as hell. I mean,
yeah.
we're really clever apes. That's sick. I don't know why that bothers people so much, but whatever. Who am I to judge, I suppose?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. We have some questions for you from the audience.
Oh, cool. I'll do my best.
Have you seen any of the work Robert Sapolsky did with baboons?
Yes, actually, yes. One of my colleagues is not necessarily directly in line with Sapolsky's work, but she is going and doing like she has like her cursory project for her where she's studying like weaning times and certain cortisol levels basically in young baboons. But Sapolsky's like the baboon guy with a lot of stuff. I'm trying to remember specifically what paper. Hold on, let me jog my memory here.
Your memories?
My memories, yeah. Let's see here.
Oh, that was from BJ also.
Let
Good
me
old
see.
Beach.
Yeah. Okay, so he does a lot of like social work essentially.
Okay.
He's I'm pretty sure one of my supervisor actually, Yulia Lemon. She does social networking in primates generally speaking, and she like cites a lot of his stuff. When we were working on Robin Dunbar's The Social Brain Hypothesis, which is basically this attempt to try and solve the problem of primate brain evolution, because primates, even when accounting for their body size, their brains are just much larger than any other mammal. And Dunbar's hypothesis, which kind of drew from some of Sapolsky's work, if memory serves, was, or at least has now, was basically that it is the maintenance of social systems and connections
Mm,
was the initial driver.
right.
Not to say that there aren't, kind of uh, cooperative selective forces now. Like the cognitive buffer hypothesis is this idea that, okay, you have a bigger brain, then you can react to changes in your environment better. That's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's the case, why don't all mammals have large brains, right? If that's the initial driver, why don't we see that across all mammals, that it
Right.
occupies similar niches? Why don't we see it as much in the platyrians compared with the catarines of New World versus Old World? So the social brain hypothesis, which I I'm kind of a little bit bought into it. I think it's
You
probably a
drank the
mixed
Kool-Aid, huh?
model. Hmm?
You drank the Kool-Aid, huh?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Had a
I
little
don't.
sip.
Yeah, it's a little controversial. I don't think it's by itself sufficient in explaining primate brain evolution, but um,
Well,
I think
sure. I'd agree
yeah,
with that.
yeah, it's playing a big role because I don't think you can find a primate that even orangutans, right, like the solitary guys. There's quite a bit of support now for the idea that go back 10 million years and they formed cohesive social groups. So their
Hmm.
solitary lifestyles are somewhat of a recent adaptation,
Did
at
not
least
know that. Fascinating.
pongid. Yeah, pongid. So which is weird and interesting. That was like a huge sidetrack just because I saw
No.
an opportunity to talk about the social brain and I was like, let me talk about it.
No, that's why you're here.
Yeah, but I wish Sapolsky. I don't know him well as I know like Dunbar and the like because he's a baboon guy. I'm a macaque gal. I know macaques more than I know any of the other genera. But yeah, I'll talk about macaques all day. I actually got this for Christmas. I have it right here just in case. It's a male rhesus macaque bone clone. So
Oh,
it's like a
nice.
which is really cool. I love looking at it. I'm like, oh, this is sick. My mom was like, are you sure you don't want like some like, makeup this year or something? I was like, hit me with that rhesus macaque skull, dude.
That something similar happened to me. My Amazon wish list is a bunch of books, mostly developmental biology stuff, and my dad looked at it and said, "I'm gonna get you a gift card."
Yeah, yeah,
I
like
love the gift card. I'm gonna use it obviously, but
yeah, well, exactly. And like, no shit, God, I wish I was good at makeup, and then I would use it. But no, absolutely no shame on those who are better at it than I am. But I get a lot of joy out of collecting like model replicas of like I have
uh,
a Australopithecine over here at Forensis, so it's like I love them. I think they're cool.
that is awesome. Yeah, we had. Oh my God, uh, I was at the museum one day, and we were gonna have this. Well, I was at the museum a lot of days, but one day in particular, I was upstairs. I was kind of upstairs. I was up downstairs. It's complicated. Don't think about it too hard. But I was up downstairs, and I came across this drawer, and it said A. afarensis, and I was like, the frick? Do we have
Oh my
Australopithecines?
god.
And I opened it. I was like, oh god, they're casts. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god. I know. My I get it, and I think that they should be in their country of origin and where they were found. But I was in the I spent an inordinate amount of time in the Natural History Museum in London because it's so awesome. They actually have the original Archaeopteryx lithographica in their like treasures
Oh my
collection,
gosh.
and I was
Yeah.
like staring at it, and I made my boyfriend come along with me, and we were standing there, and I was like, "Do you understand how important this fossil is?"
Do you
He's
know
like,
what we're looking at?
he's like, "Oh yeah, isn't that like what's that like Archaeopteryx? Yeah." And I was like, "No, no, no. This is the first Archaeopteryx.
This is Mr. Archaeopteryx.
This is the type specimen of Archaeopteryx lithographica." I was like, "Oh, bask in it. This is incredible. This is the coolest shit ever." And it's like I would love to do that with, like I said, I got to go to Olduvai Gorge, but they don't keep most of their specimens, obviously, at the gorge itself because it's a gorge.
Right, you
They
know,
keep
yeah.
most of them in like the
Might be a little
museums and
difficult.
yeah, exactly. They have like a nice cast of the Laetoli footprints there, and I was like, it's a cast of Laetoli footprints. This is awesome. But they don't have the actual skulls or anything like that. But I would love to see those in person
Oh
at
yeah.
some juncture because it'd just be like, oh my god, like the history, incredible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just yeah, that would be awesome. I remember Gart um has a story about how he went to what was it, some museum in England, and they said, "Are you a scholar?" And he was like, "Yes." And they let him, go into the back area and see some of Darwin's letters and stuff.
Oh my god, dude, I think Sygart's a great guy. He's the sweetie. He's
Oh yeah,
cool.
he's also I've had him on too. Right after he actually had a run in with a creationist, it was hilarious.
Oh my god.
It was
Running.
gold.
A wild encounter.
It bumped into him, yeah. Uh,
Mm.
um, I guess one more. Well, we'll see. We're already past the hour, but I did want to ask you about the Ediacaran, the video you did on Ediacarans.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Let's talk about it. Oh,
you go
I
first.
yeah. So I'm reading Peter Brandon's "The Ends of the World." Or I read it when I was like, "Oh my god, I got to do a video on mass extinctions," because first of all, there's so many and they're so devastating, and I had no idea what a horrific like snowball effect every single one of them really was, and it made me very anxious about where we are at right now because I was like, okay.
We're due for another one.
We're due. Yeah, we're really, really due. And if it's not us, it could come from above,
Or
like
Yellowstone.
yeah, our Yellowstone impact event. What could it be this time? But first of all, I think Ediacaran life is very cool, even though it's just these like big fleshy fronds and these big quilted mats that are like kind of segmented but kind of not. And they're
Mhm.
doing their best and they're trying and they've just made it, their ancestors have just made it through snowball earth, and so they're just going about their regular metabolic processes, minding their own business, and then they inadvertently spell their own doom by oxygenating their environment to the extent that there can be a new radiation of like, I like to think of it, it's like these movers and shakers come along, like the guys who use oxygen, oh wow,
Oh.
to the extent that they can metabolically move faster, the hot shots. And then you get guys like Priya Pulata, the penis worm.
I've always said Priapulida. I don't know. It doesn't
Yeah,
really matter. I guess we know what you're talking about.
you've probably got it more than I do, but I'm just gonna call them the penis worms because I think it's really funny and it's
Yeah,
cool.
they are the
And
penis
you've got
worms.
yeah, it's just burrowers, and when the burrowers do their thing and they start burrowing and they're chucking up all the muck, this thick, basically microbial mat that our Ediacaran guys can kind of feed on,
It's like
they're like,
ah.
they're like, whoa, 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 why is it all of a sudden so clear? And then it's like the filter feeders are like, what's up? Knock, knock. It's me. I'm a filter feeder and I'm helping clean out, these shallow seas. And all of a sudden, there's visibility and there's somewhat of, I guess, an incentive to select two for vision. which I guess that's a little bit of speculation on my part, but
I would agree
it
with you.
would
I think you're right.
yeah, I think it would serve to reason that in murky waters, since we see that, with certain river dolphins and I think gharials and the like, which have sort of reduced vision when they
Mm.
live in habitats that are really murky and just kind of garbage in general, they get reduced.
Literally.
Yeah, yeah, literally. Yeah, which is such a bummer, but like it's just really bums me out. That's why I like macaques. They're very undepressing species to study because they're really good at living in garbage patches. But
Yikes.
yeah, and then the Ediacaran life is like, shit, what do? We can't survive in this because we can't move and we can't eat. And then the Cambrian explosion was like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Boom, mouth parts. Boom, like optical evolutionary advantages. Boom, piercing parts. Speed. It's just like this absolute menagerie of radiation because it's like, great, we've got oxygen, great, we've got clear seas, we're not getting bombarded by radiation from the sun, it's great. And we lose all the cool guys from the Ediacara and all the sweet, slow, fleshy quilts and little fronds, and they're gone. They can't keep up. And
Yeah.
it's like something as simple. I think that that's very telling too, because it's like they undid themselves inadvertently. Is that kind of what we're doing? Like,
Yeah. Except with with instead of oxygenating the water column, we're destroying everything. Setting it ablaze or
yeah,
cutting it down or acidifying the oceans. So
yeah,
yeah.
and it's totally a carbon sequestering game, right? Like it's
Right.
like if we did this much slower, it would be business as usual. But the problem is we're just taking all this nice sequestered carbon and just absolutely, like you said, lighting it on fire.
Yeah.
Which isn't a great move on our part.
Right. What was it I said? Oh, in the rabbit evolution video, I said rabbits have been released in or have been introduced to Australia and Oceania, where they're destroying the native wildlife. Good job on
Mm.
us.
Yeah, nice. And it's kind of funny because I don't know, you're kind of close to Florida, but it's like in Silver Spring State
Sort of.
Park. Like, yeah, okay, come on, cut me some slack. I've been away for so long.
I'll cut you half a country. How about that?
Okay, fine. Yeah, just whatever. It's so Silver Spring State Park, right? Like this dude who's filming, he's got this Tarzan boat ride back in the 30s, and he's like, oh, I really want to make like my. I did a video on this, but he's like, I really want to make my Tarzan boat ride like more realistic. So he orders 6 rhesus macaques, or sorry, crab eating macaques. Crab eating? No, no, they're rhesus. Just kidding, they're rhesus. And
I'll
he's
take
like,
your word
I'm
for
just
it.
gonna put them on an island, and it's really gonna make my Tarzan boat ride look great.
Oh,
But rhesus macaques swim.
oh
So
Christ.
they just left the island and went and just did what monkeys do, which is get into trouble and copulate like crazy. And so they just had, I think at one point they had like a thousand, maybe 1,500 rhesus macaques just in the Everglades, just chilling out.
Of course.
And I was like, yeah, because primates are really good at that. Like we're really good at getting into trouble, and we're generalists by and large. So we're awesome at thriving wherever we go. Same with cats. I mean, and dogs. Like we've and rats, and we've just got this club of generalists that we touch an island and we obliterate it with our generalism.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty sad.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. Let's just go with our ships, and then hey, now the endemic fauna is all dying off and critically endangered. How did that happen?
Oh.
Ruh-roh.
You
Oh
see all
man.
that stuff with Christmas Tree Island too. Like, they have that annual really cool crab migration,
Yeah,
where,
that's right. Yeah.
and it's like not going so well because people have introduced certain species of ant to the island, and now the ants attack the crabs, and the crabs don't know what to do because they're crabs and they don't usually encounter ants on Christmas Tree
Right,
Island.
because they've been there for millions of years with no ants.
Yeah, so what are the a bunch of little tiny mandibled monsters coming and biting you while you just go on your merry stroll. What a bummer.
They'll go the way of the dodo. They're
Oh
like,
God, don't
hey,
say
look,
that.
neighbors. Why do they have? What is that?
the classic human maneuver. We especially with us in particular, we look so harmless with our, we don't have any clear canines, and we've got our little nails, and then it's like,
We're mostly
uh-oh.
squishy, you know.
Yeah, and we've got our pointy sticks and our spicy air, and we just light everything on fire.
Right? Yeah, it's like, oh, the food just walks right up to us.
God, we are the worst.
Just exterminate the whole species. Yeah.
It's fine. This is fine.
um.
The,
Yeah, this is all very fine. I'm interested because I wrote a lot on Ediacarans for Secret Project, one of my secret projects, and I'm curious. Do you think a lot of the Ediacarans are animals, or do you think that they're independently multicellular protozoans?
I don't know. I think that's a good question. I think that at least with at least with what we can tell from some of them, we see segmentation,
Mm-hmm.
which seems to be somewhat indicative of our early animals, at least with what we know currently in the Cambrian. So I think that makes it really easy to be like, oh wow, like yeah, they're definitely animals, or at least we see the birth of Animalia, there in the Ediacaran. But at the same time, segmentation kind of seems like an adaptation that one wouldn't be too hard to experience in a
Sure.
mutation, just because right, it's just a duplication of
Right.
a body plan over and over again.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think that's a really good question. I wish I had the answer. I tentatively say I would tentatively say no, I guess. Well, I think that we see the emergence of Animalia in the Ediacaran.
Hmm.
Who it is and whether or not we found them is up for debate, I guess.
Uh, I asked PZ the other day what he thought because I found a Bud and Jensen paper that was in essence shoehorning all of the different Ediacarans into Animalia in one form or another. They were saying the Frondos, the Rangiomorphs and the Arboreomorphs might be like stem animals, and maybe some might be stem sponges because they're osmotrophs. Which and they propose this kind of interesting hypothesis for like how the osmotroph lifestyle could have given way eventually to the filter feeding, which I thought was kind of intriguing, or to the filter feeding of sponges, which is kind of interesting. But you're right, I don't necessarily think all of them are. Some of them like Dickinsoni are probably animals. It seems based on their ontogeny and the steranes associated with them. Same with like Kimberella and Caretza, maybe a few others.
Right. And I think
Yeah.
too, it kind of depends. Like I know it's it's really hard to fit everything into our categories, right?
Just get in
It's
the box. Just get in
yeah,
there.
like just come on. I made the mistake of posting a human evolution video on Purgatorius and the Plesiadapids on an anthropology Facebook group that I followed, and at some point I talk about the dental formula of haplorhines, which is like it's 2 1 2 3 because we have two incisors, canine, two premolars, three molars. And someone commented and was like, actually, there are some haplorhines that do not have that dental formula. And I was like,
You
oh,
said,
fuck.
"Oh la di da."
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, I'm a bad scientist. Hit my wrists. Like,
Oh,
because there's always exceptions, right?
well,
Like,
sure. I mean, look at Dobintonia. You know what the frick is up with that?
yeah, it's, oh man, I really anything Cambrian, a lot of kind of Ordovician life too. It's, you see it and you're like, okay, where do we want to put this guy? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, the
But I love them. They're so the Cambrian life. Like it's a real shame that some of those body plans have gone by the wayside because they sure are neat.
yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's what's really interesting is there's a paper, um, I think it was earlier this year that was describing a new phylum of Panarthropod. It
Hmm.
actually shares characteristics with onychophorans and tardigrades.
Really?
And so it was found. It was not found in the Cambrian. It was found, I think, in the Mesozoic. So what's fascinating
Yeah.
about that is, so we're missing. I mean, it's probably a given we're missing at least several phyla, but here's an example of something way down the line. We're finding one example of it, uh, but these things have been existing for hundreds of millions of years by this point, likely, you know, and so it it's just fascinating. How many pieces of the puzzle are we missing that we don't even know? We don't even know to ask the questions, right? Like
Yeah.
the batwing pterosaur or theropods, like Yichi and Amboteryx.
Yeah. The little the wyverns, right? Like
Yeah, it's like
they're just
yeah,
yeah, it's and the biggest bummer to me that I feel like I've genuinely lost some sleep over is like how many species and genera and families that are completely will remain lost to us forever.
yeah.
And that's such a bummer because God, think of the soft-bodied life forms that the weird soft-bodied life forms that we're missing out on just because they can't fossilize. But that's so sad. I bet there's some really, really cool ones out there. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the well, trace fossils in the Ediacaran at the end of the Nama assemblage or biozone, whatever you want to call it. You have the kind of the radiation of the small shelly fauna. You have so kind of suddenly you have all of these probable bilaterians, which are first starting to biomineralize, and we're seeing the beginnings of this arms race, which carries over.
yeah.
And so it's like we have no idea what the heck those were. What did Cloud Dyna look like?
Yeah.
What was the thing that was boring into it?
Yeah, I mean the classic one to go to too is like with hallucinogenia, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know which way was up for the
Right.
longest time. and
Yeah.
and sometimes like I look at it and I'm like, "Ooh, do we definitely have this right? Like are we sure?"
Right.
Like they're oh god.
What
What
if all
what
dinosaurs are upside down?
what if all of them are I love I saw like a meme the other day on like paleo art and like what say a Chocma baboon would look like if in a species in the distant future like did paleo art on it and how shrink wrapped they are and it's just this horrifying
Oh
gorgonoid
yeah.
looking thing with these big inside it's a male so it's got these huge canines and it's like this long little skinny tail and no fur whatsoever and I was like oh shit that's a good point. Like how fluffy were the dinosaurs with their plumage? Like how what did they look like? Because we are guilty of shrink wrapping them a
Oh,
bit.
absolutely. Do you follow Darren Naish on Twitter?
Not on Twitter, but I do know the name.
You should. The tetrapod zoologist is what he used to do on. There used to be his blog on Scientific American. He has a
Oh,
podcast
cool.
now. But yeah, he beats shrink wrapping over the head all the time because he did a picture of he retweeted a picture of a hippo shrink wrapped, and it took me a second
Ugh.
because I was like, is this an entelodon or something? Oh, it's a hippo.
Yeah.
Okay. Or another one with like geese, but they had no feathers and they had like these. Their wings were
Oh,
just like
it's
the
like a scythe.
yeah, they
I've
got
seen that.
ugh
I
horrifying.
I saw one that was shrink wrapped humans, and it was like
Oh,
dolphins in the future looking at a shrink wrapped human. It's this horrific picture of us with no external ears and no cheeks, so our teeth are exposed,
oh
and
my
our
gosh, yeah.
nostrils are way further up than they should be. And the caption was like, "You fool! How could you forget humans had fur and hair?" And then the next picture's like one disgusting mohawk of like hair, and I was like, "Oh God, we're hideous."
Yeah, that's true. It makes you wonder occasionally, because there are like occasional pieces on soft tissue, in like was it I think there was one in like ichthyosaurs or
Mm.
nothosaurs or something like that, and it was like they're much more like manatee kind of shaped
They're
than
chunky. Oh my
yeah,
God.
because they get it's like the chunkiness because aquatic mammals have a lot of of a lot of skin and soft
And
parts.
blubber, yeah.
And so you would think, okay, well, we always shrink wrap them, so an ichthyosaur is always just this extremely streamlined dolphin. But it's like maybe they did have, maybe some of them were a little chunky, you know?
Oh, so I love I love the treatment that temnospondyls get, because all the temnospondyls get the complete opposite end, where like they're these hideous blubbery messes that look very phallic. Like Koolasuchus is just this, whatever. I think it's like 11 feet long, or maybe not 11, maybe 7 feet long. And he's just this huge temnospondyl that was a remnant that survived in Australia forever. And God bless him, he's hideous. Like,
Koolasuchus, is that what you're talking about?
yeah,
Yeah,
his big, like
with the
bulbous
gigantic.
head,
Oh man,
the eyes,
yeah.
and then you're just like, oh God, Koolasuchus. I'm so like, I want to plush Koolasuchus.
Oh
They're so.
yeah, that's right. Oh my goodness. Uh, I guess while we're on this topic, have you ever seen a picture of Cody Larynchus?
No, tell me how to spell it.
COTYLORHYNCHUS. I think it's approximately. You'll figure it out. But it's hilarious.
No, I have seen this guy. Oh my God, it's so sad.
I know he's always just like this gigantic splayed out, and his head's like so tiny.
I I thought that was like a gag of, like, the old paleo art that shows the T-Rex with the tail like dragging behind
Yeah.
it. When I first saw this guy, I was like, oh, it's just a remnant. Like, there's no way that we actually have a guy that looks like this. And
Nope.
then
That's him.
yeah, I saw. I think there's a Field Museum specimen in Chicago, because I live in
Yeah.
Indiana when I'm in the States, and I was like, this poor baby.
What have we done to him?
What have we done to him? And I like, this poor guy. I love him. I find him quite charming, but this poor guy.
Yeah, it's hilarious to look at, and even more hilarious, he's one of our relatives.
I know, and
He's in the
I love
mammal
him.
line. So
He is. But we also have I sent Cynognathus art, or no, the Cynognathans are we're the Cynodonts, right? Not
yeah,
the Cynognathans.
yeah.
Okay, well, I don't
Cynodont
think,
Cynodontia is kind of the
yeah,
big overarching group.
the more mammalian, less, like, I guess, more derived.
Right,
Because
yeah, you got kind of like the pelycosaurs, then the basotheriapsids, like the gorgonopsids, and then you get like the cynodonts, and then you get like really the mammaliaformes.
yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it like the first hair that we see is sort of like pitting around the whiskers? Like, there's little nerve bundle
Yeah,
pits.
I think that's in the gorgonoptions, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what made me think of it, because I was like, at first I was gonna say, what if Gorgonops was like also super poofy, and then I was like, no, because we know that it had the pits, but pretty much that's where the hair stops for it, which means that
Right.
that one looks like the shrink wrapped baboon.
All right. Yeah. That I guess I'm kind of sad that sauropods don't really have feathers, or at least it seems
I
like they don't.
know.
Even the like embryos don't have feather
Yeah,
preserved. Maybe like a really basal form might have some integument or something, but
I
you know,
imagine I have a hard time too imagining what a sauropod, I guess, would use feathers for, right? Like, I like the idea of sauropods like displaying with their big long necks, like they have, like a mohawk of feathers. The
right.
males are just gorgeous. They just do these incredible displays, but it wasn't to be.
Did you ever see the sauropods with trunks?
No,
There was
tell
a
me.
there was a bit of like a debate over it at one point that maybe sauropods might have had a fleshy upper lip, sort of like a trunk.
Oh my God.
I don't think it's really accepted by anyone, but it's you know
Oh my God.
yeah, kind of weird,
They're
isn't
oh, they're hideous.
it?
Oh, that's so sad. I can kind of see, I guess, where they were coming from, like, because pachyderms have that huge
Right, you think like tapirs
belly.
or rhinos or something.
Oh, we're so mean to that.
Some
We
species
make
gonna
them
come
look.
along and do this to us one day.
I know. No. Yeah, ours will be, oh God. You'll be pleased to know that when I Googled sauropods with trunks, I got a lovely graphic from, I don't know if you saw my video on Dinosaurs by Design, but they have
I haven't yet.
the Parasaurophilus um, breathing fire because naturally
Dwayne
they
Gish. Yep.
Dwayne Gish, right? Do naturally they mix the chemicals in their gorgeous crest and exhale flames onto unsuspecting.
Are you familiar with his whole lack of reason for that?
Wasn't it? Didn't he? His like whole reason was like bombardier beetles, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they totally breathe fire. Or wait, no, they don't. They don't shoot fire out of their butt. What is it? Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, it's
Me.
yeah. He's a biochemist. Interestingly enough, Gish actually got a degree in biochemistry, which is like one of the most difficult subjects in my opinion. So I don't know how someone who's as much of a dunce as he is got a degree in that.
I think it's the same thing in my opinion as like when you have engineers, right? Because it's like I find a lot of mathematics to be quite challenging.
Hmm.
I kind of struggled with inorganic chemistry for that reason, but I thought organic chemistry was quite a bit easier.
Oh, did not like
But
organic.
I didn't like it. I did okay in organic chemistry with a lot of effort.
Yeah.
In biochemistry, I had a professor who just didn't give a shit for biochemistry, so it was like a walk in the park because his practice exams were like the exam. So I was like
Right.
cursory knowledge of biochemistry, very cursory. But yeah, it's the same thing with engineers. I think if so long as they're not exposed to any of the damning evidence, they can just kind of be intelligent individuals who are very, very deluded.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't think that every creationist is a dumbass. I
Oh,
think that most
sure, absolutely.
are like just really, really indoctrinated. And that sucks, you know, because you could have some really good scientists out there doing some awesome work. But I guess that wasn't the card to be.
Yeah. Yeah, of course the Bible speaks about dragons. So we have to co-opt a a hadrosaur into the dragon
Yes,
mythology
the
because bombardier beetles.
the sauropod, the gentle behemoth hidden by the lotus flowers. This big fucking sauropod hiding
Like a
under the
little
lotus flowers.
he wears like a hat or something,
I know.
like
And
a
then
little
the
fedora.
Leviathan, they're like, oh, this is a mosasaur. And you're like, okay, mosasaurs are pretty fierce. Like, not, like I could see how someone could try to make that comparison. And then it's like, oh, look at how it breathes fire. And I'm like, mm,
I mean,
mm-mm.
you just think about like the one time in a Parasaurolophus life he would even try to like use it, his head would just explode, right?
I know.
Just, I mean, the only, it's like it would only work as like suicide to protect your offspring or something, that is the only case in which it would work.
Yeah, which I'm fairly certain we don't. Well, I don't know this for sure, but I don't think we see that strategy like in any large fauna, right?
No,
Like
yeah,
this suicidal behavior for the sake of the offspring.
right,
I mean, putting yourself at great risk is a very different situation than let me blow my head up
right.
to scare this oncoming theropod. So, but God, I that I went to a young Earth creationism middle school. Both my dad's an MD, not specifically. It was a Christian middle school that taught young Earth creationism. It
Yeah,
wasn't like, but and both my parents are like fine. Both of them now accept evolution, but at the time they were both like fine with it. Like neither of them would have been like, my dad's an MD. Like he's not gonna be the first guy who's gonna be like, yeah, let me just reject all of biology.
right.
But their favorite thing, same with AIG, right, is just like, oh yeah, we have dinosaurs too, so that makes our hypothesis valid. And
Yeah,
they roll out the fucking picture of an allosaur crunching on mangoes with its sickle shaped teeth.
yeah,
And
because that's we know loads of herbivores which have sickle shaped teeth.
well, and I heard someone too. I saw an AIG page that was like, well, gorillas, they're mostly folivorous and they've got huge teeth. And I'm like, my dude, their molars are like that big.
Right.
Those teeth aren't for eating. Those teeth are for display. Like,
Allosaurus, its teeth are knives. Every single tooth is a knife. It's like
all
a
of
banana-sized knife. And so you think, well, it's like name an herbivore, one that
yeah,
has banana-sized incisors.
yeah.
One.
And all of them are incisors. All of their teeth are just, like you said, just
Yeah.
knives. Like,
Yeah.
can't cheat and point to, an animal that also happens to have huge mortar and pestle molars for grinding up
Right.
leaves. It
Uh,
doesn't count.
yeah, you're absolutely right. I think I tweeted about that the other day as like because Tyrannosaur was like eating a watermelon in their Genesis Paradise Lost video, and the creationists, they love to say like, "Oh, you don't know it wasn't an herbivore. We've literally found Tyrannosaur teeth embedded in the tails of hadrosaurs. We know they weren't playing tag."
Oh, but Jackson, that was post fall. Come on.
I quit. I'm done. Or their
I don't think
coprolite, which has bones in it.
I had a conversation with this same IRL creationist friend where he was like, we had the same exact conversation when I was like, look, you if you're gonna propose that all felids and all, theropod dinosaurs and sharks and all of these, predatory animals used to be, herbivorous, you've got to show me a lion with molars and incisors that looks, like a bison's mouth,
Hmm.
and he goes, well, there wouldn't have been that many of them, and they probably would have diversified before the flood, to have sharp teeth before the flood buried them. So, and I was like, I don't, okay, like, I don't know how to respond to that. Like, that was like 6 dodges in a single question. So,
Yeah, he's moved.
yours.
The goalpost has been moved to the level of we can't find evidence because it doesn't exist. At which point, you're right. There is no comeback because okay, you've taken your chess pieces off the board. You've
Yeah,
lost. You know.
exactly. And oh my God, the frustration can reach levels, especially too, because like I said, I really liked this individual as a friend. Like he's a very nice guy, and I wanted to be
I
like,
like you as a friend.
yeah, and like I wanted to shake him by the shoulders and be like, listen to me, like,
Right.
dude, you're being like scammed. I don't know how else to say it. Just please don't. And oh no, it was a real bummer. That whole deal bums me out big time.
I haven't had a good talk IRL with a creationist. I think, man, that's like over a year now. So I guess since I was at LSU Baton Rouge, and there would be street preachers who would come as a group, um, like once a month, and they would come and yell at the kids, you know,
Hmm.
and they were a hoot. They wear signs like "God hates gays" and all that
Yeah, yeah,
trash.
we got those guys too. And my undergrad had like in the union, the big outdoor union. It was
Mm-hmm.
like right in front of the student union.
Yep.
Of course, it's like the hub. Everyone passes through it, and the Pentecostals would show up at least once a year. The dudes, their beards are like to their feet, and it was the same thing. They've got these massive signs. It's like super anti-LGBTQ, like super just hostile, and then they want you to like have a conversation with them, and I'm like, dude, like you can't show up with a sign like that and want to engage people because that's just really shitty.
Right. No. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. Hello, Frosty Claus, and Titty Lane, and Beej, and everyone else. But I didn't expect to see some of you here. Ah, I'm
The
shook.
gang's all here.
The gang is all here. Why does he not have a wrench? Let's add moderator. There we go. Um, yeah, they I try to talk to them, and the funny thing about it, uh, about trying to talk to their head cult leader who kind of disappeared from their Facebook page. So
Oh,
maybe
no.
they got a new cult leader. I don't know. I was looking him up one day because he said he like came to Shreveport a few times, and I thought, maybe he would want to do like a hangout on, maybe in real life or maybe on the internet. I don't know. But I tried looking him up. His Facebook account was gone. Nothing. I was like, okay, something
You're like
happened here.
sort of like a Heaven's Gate type scenario where you're like, uh-oh, is
Yeah,
everyone okay?
yeah, I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm just gonna go.
I'm
I,
gonna excuse myself from the cult meeting this week. Thank you very much.
yeah, I don't, I haven't really thought about it much since, but I don't know whatever happened to him. But because
Yeah.
the funny thing is, when you start talking to them, they're kind of, they're just like a blender of tropes, you know. Kent's kind of the same way. It's like when, or he has the same way. It's like when you ask them one question, they just get all these things mixed together, and so, or their answer is all these things mixed together. And so you're like, okay, let's kind of sift through the different threads. You know?
Well, and Kent is the master of the okay, one subject at a time, and then he just like
Gish
gish
gouts.
gallops into the sunset, and you're like, okay, like, come on, Kent. And I've seen like people like Drysdale, be like, okay, Kent, like you said one subject at a time, so let's do one subject at a time, and he does not like that.
No, because he can't. He doesn't have any background knowledge.
No, exactly, yeah, and God, I know Standing is a big fan of Hovind, and
Yeah.
he's tried. I've seen Hovind once or twice try to like import some of like the new creationism TM Jeanson Tompkins Sanford material,
Mm-hmm.
but then the second he puts it in, he knows that he's not going to be able to answer any questions about it because it requires, at least a baseline knowledge of how genetics works. I mean,
Yeah.
Kent is under the impression that chromosome similarity or differences is the only thing that implies hybridization ability.
That's nothing about like prezygotic or postzygotic barriers,
No mechanical isolation or
temporal, any of that. No, none. Just
no, nothing like that. I mean, it's
I'd say I'm surprised, but I'm not. So I wouldn't want to lie
yeah,
to you.
not surprised, just disappointed.
Well, there's the meme. I asked for nothing, and I was still disappointed.
Yeah, the Malcolm in the middle. It's the youngest kid. Yeah, Kent is an odd bird. I wonder. I love too when someone brings up the taxes and he'll go on a side tangent for KentHovendisinnnocent.com or
Oh
.org.
God, yeah, yeah. What does he like to say? Well, Paul was in prison too. Wow, you have no
Oh
shame.
yeah,
You're
I
gonna
I
compare yourself to one of like the patriarchs of your religion?
like
Yeeks.
like the big guy of the New Testament. Like
Yeah,
it's like Jesus and then it's like Paul. It's like those are the two guys.
and that's where you consider yourself. You're right up there with Paul, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's or I don't know if you saw his talk with it was either I think he's had a talk with Cygart before, hasn't he?
Yeah, they talked. I think they talked about was it like common ground or something like that? Because
Yeah,
that's the kind of
yeah.
person Sai is. He's always looking for common ground. He
Cy,
just needs to be more combative.
he's too nice for
He's
his own
too
good.
nice. Yeah,
You've got
exactly.
the sliding scale. It's like Cygart is on like the super nice side, and then you've got the decimation that is Auron. It's like you're gonna fall somewhere on the scale. Like you're gonna decimate, with aggression and fact, or you're gonna decimate with kindness and facts.
Right.
Either way, they're both great guys. But Kent in that conversation was like he was having I think it was with Cy. It was either him or Inspiring Philosophy. It was one of those. It was like a theology conversation.
Oh, he's awesome too.
Yeah.
IP's great.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Great. Yeah, they're both great. Anybody who is religious, it's totally fine as long as it's like you accept conventional science. I genuinely don't care where you stand.
Right.
In your theology, it's all fine. But yeah. Kent had just gotten finished saying to, I believe it was Cy or Inspiring Philosophy, and he was basically like, "Oh, so you think like you can't read it plainly? You like if you can't read it literally, it's not plain. You think I need you to interpret? You think I need you to interpret the Bible? It's plain right here. It says in the beginning.
So Jesus
Okay,
is literally a door.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all, yeah, and then second of all, then he turns around, and starts harping on and on about how his interpretation is the only way. And I'm like, okay, Kent, isn't that just what you accused him of? Like,
You're
we
right.
need Hovind to like tell us how to interpret like Yeah, let alone like you've got like Dr. Josh Bowen, right, who's like someone who actually studies ancient Near Eastern, you know,
Oh yeah,
literature and Assyriology, and I think it's Megan that does Assyriology, but or it's one of them. One of them, they're great. One
the
of them,
digital Hammurabi team. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. One of them does Assyriology, and the other one is I'm not gonna put words in their mouth. I'm not positive, but yeah, and you know, to think that you would be like interpreting a language is hard enough. Interpreting a culture is damn near impossible, like under a modern lens. Plus,
Right.
there's so much like myth sharing that goes on just whenever you get a bunch of people in a room, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because like we're natural storytellers because we try to explain the world around us in terms that we can understand. So you think there's not going to be a little crossover like with the Epic of Gilgamesh or Enuma Elish, like or any of the Egyptian mythos, like it's all fascinating, but it's all like a game of telephone too, you know?
Oh I definitely agree with that. I don't know, kind of my pet theory, and I don't know how well it holds, or if someone like the Hammurabi team would just be like, bah, nothing. But
Yeah.
I like to think, maybe the Adamic story is describing metaphorically the agricultural revolution. That perhaps
Mm.
Adam and Eve in pre-fall, this is the hunter-gatherer society that are just
Yeah.
out there because they form, there's the fall and they clothe themselves, and then there's civilization afterwards. Where do all these other people come from? Ooh, we're not going to talk about that. But, but
Well, I
right.
no, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Keep
yeah,
going.
that was my thought. I don't know if that holds any water and they just be like, bah, or what, but I like to think
I
that.
mean, it would make sense too because it's like right before Adam and Eve are like they're both like on the same playing field, but then like it becomes like men subjugating his wife and
Mm-hmm.
pain and childbirth and working the land and things like that.
Right.
And there's pretty good evidence that division of labor based off of the sexes was not nearly as big a thing in hunter-gatherer
Right.
society as it was in agricultural society.
A very egalitarian, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like you kind of got, it's what's best for the tribe. But if you've got like a big hulky woman that wants to go hunting with the boys, or you've got a really, color adept young man who's excellent at spotting ripe fruits,
Right.
you're probably not going to throw a huge fit about it as long as it feeds the tribe. Um, but I think too, and I don't think that there should be a problem either, like for someone who has their faith to make an allegorical interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's allegory doesn't mean that the message isn't still, worth something.
Sure.
But it's like a lot of those parts of Genesis were written down after the Babylonian captivity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's at least one of the reasons I've heard. I'm definitely not an expert in this, but that's one of the reasons why there's so many similarities between the Babylonian myth and the creation story and in the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
because it was almost like a hey, we're going to take your myth because we're so mad that you kept us captive for so long. And it's like, yeah, Marduk's cool and all, but he didn't do it, like Yahweh did it. You know what I mean?
I think that's like the explanation for the Tower of Babel. It was a tower
Well,
to Marduk, if I remember correctly.
I'm not sure. Quite possibly,
I think it
probably.
was because that was another one that was appropriated, And again,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with cultures appropriating other stories and whatnot. It happens, but
Especially when there was like nothing to do but like work, copulate, and eat and tell stories.
and they can
Like
only
those were the
copulate for so long.
you could
Yeah.
only copulate for so long. Plus, that childbirth is a real gamble. So it's like you really
Should
want
we risk it
to
9 months?
yeah, like yeah, it's the wife is one of the many wives is probably like, let's have another story time, please, for the love of God.
We already have 7 kids. Should we throw it another time?
God, it's like, well, we did want to put in another plot of maze, like we might as well.
If we
uh,
start now, we can probably have them ready by. We'll have a newborn tilling
I
the
for
field.
this. Yeah, yep. And then it's like the battle to breastfeed for as long as possible. So it's like, oh God, like I don't want to be viable for another child. It's like breastfeed, prolactin, natural birth control.
Right. Yeah. That. Yeah. Oh. Oof. Big oof.
Big oof
I
for
think.
prehistoric,
I.
or rather agricultural man.
I think. Agricultural women too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think I remember Ken Ham saying that like uh, all the pain in childbirth was necessary, and like is necessary. It's like it helps women or something like that. It's like, bruh, stop.
Okay, Ken.
You're.
Okay, Ken.
It's like
Tell
you.
me this. Like, do you think Ken is even comfortable like saying the word menstruation? Like, he looks like the kind of person who would like
No.
cringe at the thought of that women have genitals. This is the same. Actually, I think Genesis Paradise Lost. That wasn't AIG, right? That was someone else. That was Creation Ministries.
That it was no, that was AIG. It was Eric Hovind teaming up with, well, it was kind of the whole, it was kind of a whole bunch of them, because you had Ray Comfort in there, you had Eric Hovind, you had, yeah, I know. Well, he was really there just for the altar call. They weren't like, we're not going to give him any sciency lines. We're just gonna let him
He's he's
do the
the
Jesus.
Aquaman of the creationist Justice League. They have to invite him.
Uh, yeah, it's yeah. He's like, oh man, if you guys were over here in the water, I could do something about that. uh,
Oh man, if only we had but this calls for a banana analogy. Like
oh
that guy.
yeah, I love. I mean, he's just he is something. I love that he has like interacted with Hannah and Jake from the Bible Reloaded. I love that he's interacted with them. They've had this whole kind of back and forth thing that just is hilarious to me.
Raise hip with the kids.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's
I I love too how like I saw this it was for something a while back. I was listening while I was doing something else like studying or something like that, but it was a
oh,
an Eric Hovind interview where he was he was like, yeah, one of the biggest questions that we get is like, how are we going to deal with like the nudity in the garden? And like, I think fans are really going to like, we've come up with a real creative solution. They're really going to like what we've done. And then like immediately after, like the person who's done this is like interspersed a clip and it's just like fucking glitter like all over the
yeah.
breasts and the genitals and whatever. And I'm like, dude, seriously? Like, are you that like phobic of the genitals of humans that it like icks you out to even consider in the natural form or whatever. I
Yeah.
thought everything was supposed to be like perfect. Like why?
We were made in the image.
Yeah,
The
I just
image.
I like the idea of male frontal nudity in Genesis Paradise Lost.
I mean, it's. I mean, for God's sake, not even in Genesis Paradise Lost. Very little of it is actually about Adam and Eve. It
Really?
very yeah. They're too busy with the animals coming out of tornadoes concept to be bothered. You think it's not a joke? Nothing. I would never kid you like that. It's too good to
What
be
is the
fake.
context?
Okay. So when God creates on each of the days, it's tornadoes. It's literally tornadoes, and the animal. There's an animation with like elephants and antelope running out of a tornado. These are giant dust tornadoes, and it's like, and on the sixth day, God created all the animals of all the beasts of the field and all this, and so they're coming out of these tornadoes, and it's like, when I saw that, I was like, tornadoes. Your scriptural interpretation is animals came out of tornadoes.
I'm pretty sure the Sci-Fi Channel did that better, right? They had like
Probably.
3 sequels.
Are Adam and Eve white? Oh, you bet your butt.
Oh my god.
You bet your butt we're not gonna have Arabs.
Kidding me? Brown people in my expansion story? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Oh my god. You just think I just think like, what's so low on the list of issues we have to worry about? Nudity. Not I would think the gross misinterpretation of both science and theology, but the nudity thing too.
They gotta get the brain trust together to figure out the solution to the nudity problem.
Just
Really, really put their heads together. It's a real head scratcher.
camera at the neck. That's all you need. You don't, just or like behind a bush. They're standing behind a bush. Whatever.
Like that's the go-to, right? Like it's conveniently placed foliage. That's
Sure.
generally how it goes,
Or
you know.
vine or something. Yeah,
Or even
exactly.
hair, like her hair's just really long.
Right. Yeah.
What?
No. It's Oh my god, it was so bad. I actually did a video on it. Right after well, actually, the first place I went and talked about it the night that I saw it was on Strike's channel. Hashtag
Mm.
sad day.
Mm.
Um, yeah, RJ, myself, I don't remember if anyone else is there, but we all talked about it that night because he used to do this thing where I was like, if a creationist movie was coming out, he would say, "Hey, this is coming out," and in Baton Rouge, oftentimes that it would be playing at one of the theaters because it's a big enough city. They got loads of theaters. Here in
Mm.
Shreveport, nah, not really. Um, well, of course, we don't really have a sign anymore, but
Yeah.
um, but did they have belly buttons? Probably. Um, but yeah, there was that one. So we talked about that. I did a video on it talking about kind of the hilarity of it. Then later we went on PZ's channel and talked about it, and it was just they they were like Lucy was just a chimp.
Don't get me started on
I
that.
I actually face palmed in the theater. There are creationists on both sides, and I face palmed in the theater, and the lady next to me turned and looked at me.
That I mean, the thing with Lucy, honest to God, I could change if this is creationist memes in general that I hate. It's the Australopithecus afarensis was not a biped, like at all. Period. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's like, okay, hold on. I got this nice Australopithecus afarensis skull right here. Look where the foramen magnum is. It's underneath the skull.
Dot 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 dot. Yeah.
Poor Lucy would be craning her neck like this if she was trying to walk like that. That would be impossible. What is going on? She's got inline big toes, right? She's got knuckles that can't lock. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this animal was a biped most of the time. And the time that she wasn't a biped, she was probably up in the trees.
Right.
Oh God. And same thing with the Laetoli footprints. I've been told that the Laetoli footprints are indeed human footprints. And there's an excellent paper about biomechanics out there. It's a biomechanics paper that compares human hunter-gatherer societies, like akin to the Hadzabe, how they walk and bear weight on soft soil, and then how chimpanzees bear their weight on soft soil, recording it, checking out the actual imprints, and measuring exactly where each, contact point, how deep it is to measure
Mm-hmm.
how the weight was born. And then they do the same thing with the Laetoli footprints because they did find another track of them, which is awesome and very cool. I
Mm-hmm.
think this was a while back. Guess where Lucy falls on how this weight bearing mechanism? Exactly intermediate.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. It's like they're trying to be wrong.
Oh yeah, that's what they do for a living. They get paid to be wrong.
They get paid to be wrong. If oh my God, can you
Yeah.
imagine? I mean, it's a big paycheck.
Try
The only
me.
cost is your dignity.
Yeah. Terry James makes a good point. They depicted the first cat as a lion with tiger stripes. They did do that because in their minds, in the Answers in Genesis minds, the archetype of each kind is like a chimera of all of the species within it because they have no conception of how speciation works. So they think it's just flowing downwards like a
Yeah.
stream. The variation is just getting spread out. It's not maintained at all. There are no mutations that ever like add new alleles, except sometimes there are, but it's not the
When it's
same.
convenient. Yeah.
Or, yeah, it's like it depends on which creationist you read, and so it's just wacky.
It's so wacky. And what's the one Jensen uses? It's like it's not induced heterozygosity, but it's like
Yes, um, a created heterozygosity,
created heterozygosity.
which
And I'm like,
you know why that exists though. You know why it exists?
it informed me.
Because he recognizes there is too much variation to have come about in only 6 to 10,000 years. So we must have been created. It is 110% ad hoc, and he knows it.
And what kills me too is that like these guys they put so much weight on the fact that we're still like paleogenetics is still like an emergent field. Because if you had like the amphicyonids, like the bear dogs, right? It's like, okay,
What you
where do
gonna
the bear
do?
dogs go?
I would love. I have never gotten any of them. Well, I don't ever get to have like actual interesting conversations with creationists because you have to spend the entire time explaining the basics with them,
Yeah.
so you never get to like paleogenomics. But I would love to ask them about. Okay, let's look at elephants. So we have paleogenetic data for mastodons and mammoths, right? And then we have, of course, the modern elephants,
Right.
and we have a number of mammoths, right? So the question is, okay, are all of these guys related to each other? You know, um, and if so, are they related to more distant elephants?
Yeah. Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's
Where does it belong? I mean, it's so incredibly frustrating. And like every time there's a transitional, you can ask that question. I mean, transitional in like if you're looking at a single lineage, right? It's
right.
like everything I guess is transitional in a sense, but like for our purposes, right? It's like you almost have to create a new kind every time there's a transitional, but they can't do it too much because that creates arc related problems.
Oh yeah.
Where are you going to fit all the kinds on the arc? It's like it's this balancing act between how do we explain biodiversity and how do we fit everything on the arc.
And they don't. They do
It's
not explain biodiversity. I've read their papers.
I I struggle to get through it. I can make it a decently far into the introduction, but once they start, showing their data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like our results, I'm always like, okay, but why is a lot of the data missing? You know, where's
Yeah.
the rest of it?
RJ and I have read all the chapters in all four of the Answers in Genesis, the new Answers books that relate to evolutionary biology, paleontology, and
Aren't those
geology.
like that thick?
Yeah, about like that. That or
Yeah,
so.
they're like biggish books.
Yeah, they're like yeah, maybe into 200 to 300, something like that, in pages. But we don't read all their chapters because they have a lot of chapters that are kind of like petty theological issues
Yeah,
and some stuff that's like astronomy, or it'll be like um, political stuff, whatever, or kind of pseudo political stuff. They kind of walk around the political arena, even though we all know what they're doing, what they think. Come on, you know.
of course. Of
Uh,
course, yeah. There's no vagueness in where they feel about certain certain human rights.
where they feel about human rights, yeah. It's not like the Discovery Institute who just put out articles about. They're like, okay, yeah, we're just gonna go full political and some stuff. We don't mind, you know. Um, but yeah,
They're gutsy. They're gutsy like that.
right. We actually one of the how's the rocks were there coming along. Actually, I did the final edits of chapter 7. I didn't do the final edits. Basically, I draft the chapter. RJ goes over it with a fine tooth comb and adds loads of stuff, and then he sends it back to me, and I edit it. And usually that's it. But this is a geology chapter, so we sent it to our favorite geologist, Stephen Bowman,
Good.
to
That's awesome.
read it over. Yeah, we sent a biology chapter to Matt Herron, who does algae work. Um, yeah, Bowman's awesome. He's done a couple of our chapters. He's fantastic. And so he's reading it now, going over it, and then we just kick it back to RJ, and then it's just the editing of the whole book. Really, how do we, what page sizes and index and all that, and then that's it. We'll be done probably in January. That's the hope.
When are you thinking you're going to publish?
In January, we're using CreateSpace, Amazon
That's going to be
CreateSpace.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's gonna...
Oh, but the point the place I was going with that before I was sidetracked was we actually read, or one of the articles we read was by Andrew Snelling, who cites a paper by Kurt Wise. I'm I'm glad you're sitting down for this one. Kurt Wise accepts the entire Paleozoic sequence.
How does that work?
Right? It's okay. So have you ever heard of the floating forest?
Oh no.
Yes. So the coal, like the coal seams and whatnot.
And
Um.
this is for the polystrate fossils too. This is for both.
Uh.
This is biodiversity in the polystrate fossils.
Sort of. He doesn't really. I think Wise is kind of at the point where he realizes, or where he recognizes polystrate fossils aren't really a thing. This is more of just the diversity, the biodiversity,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's like, the islands are like concentric rings of plants with so you have like the rhinophytes on the outside, and you have bryophytes, and then as you get in you have the progymnosperms, and then in further you have the angiosperms, and so
And is there a reason for this like zonation?
no, no,
Oh, okay,
none
okay,
whatsoever.
all right, okay.
But it gets even better because, of course, we find, it makes sense. We'd find the guys like Tiktaalik and Eusthenopteron on kind of the edge with the rhinophytes, because they're aquatic critters. But then maybe a little bit in more we find Ichthyostega, and then a little bit in further we find West Lithuania and the early amniotes, and then it's just it's astounding that they're just all living on these continent-sized islands that just get whammed into the fossil record.
Then you've got guys too who try to explain the coal forests, like the coal seams, by
Yeah,
like floating islands that have been struck by lightning so many times that they just burn, and then they sink, and then they lay down as coal seams. Essentially, it's like the short version. So it's like you've got all of these models that are all in not just surface level conflict, but deep methodological conflict with each other, because you've got Kurt's fucking floating zoos organized by evolutionary like
right,
progression,
right.
floating around in the calm areas. But then in the really shitty areas, that's where the coal seeps come from, because God just really doesn't like those islands. He
It's
hates
so
them.
it is so funny because at one point he's like, the the order of animals of organisms in the Paleozoic, like both plants and animals and terrestrial animals. He's like, it's yes, this is exactly the order that evolution predicts. But what if it's not because of evolution?
But what if I'm right? You're nitpicking bias. I win. Bye bye.
Yeah, it's so insane.
And then like that's like the floating teapot, analogy, right? It's like, okay, well, if we're gonna say that, like, let's just what if everything was just created instantly last Thursday, right? The
Right.
last Thursdayism
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah. Last
as is, just
Thursdayism.
just to
Yeah.
just to look that way. I mean, it comes down to a constant uttering of, okay, but where do you draw the line?
Right. Yeah, that's
Where's the line?
the Omphalos hypothesis, I believe is what that's called.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, it
Reality is not reality.
right. Yeah, it's all a simulation. What's even funnier is he does the exact same thing for aquatic organisms in a different paper. Kurt Wise does. It's like but it's like, again, like concentric rings from the coat, or I guess concentric, yeah, kind of around. It's the farthest out. You have the Ediacarans, and they're kind of out in the deep water. Even though we know Ediacarans came from both deep water and from shoreline, or
Yeah,
near shore environments.
these are all the shallow ones,
Right.
okay, or the deep ones, right? Just those ones,
Um,
just the ones.
but so there's that. Then a little bit closer, you have the Cambrian fauna. Then a little bit closer, you have you have like ichthyosaurs and things like that. Then a little bit closer, it's like how
And
how
then you're like, okay, okay. What about all of the mammalian cetaceans, right? Who
no,
occupied the same niches?
no, bad.
Yeah, and then No, no. my my buddy Colton and then this other friend Dakota, they were on the Georgia video that I'm kind of editing right now too. They brought up how like we find ammonites that basically have the bends, right? Like you find like bubbling in their fossil systems. I think it's in the bones. I'm not sure because you know they're predators that move up and down through the ocean, like through the levels of the ocean, the benthic zone versus like high up where the light reaches. And if they move too fast, they get a little bit of the bends, and it doesn't always kill them,
Okay,
right?
I
So,
gotcha.
but they get a little bit of the bends, and so it's like we find them, you know, moving from level to level, and yet we never find any in the same area as these supposed ecologically sorted high up cetaceans or you know
Right.
the later Cretaceous fauna, you know, aquatic fauna. And what about all the cetaceans that also do that? You know, I mean, we've got honestly like I'm overloading on on all of it. It's just so frustrating.
Oh yeah. I really don't know how much writing about creationism I'm going to do once the second rocks were there is finished, because I I'm starting a blog on scientist Mel's, um, or scientist Mel's website, which is exciting, and I want to write about creationism right now, but I feel like I'm going to be so like fuddied out on creationism once I get done with the second one that I'm just going to be like I'm never even looking at it again. I think maybe
Yeah.
I'll just do like, hey, here's a cool new paper that came out in Nature last week. Let's take a look at this. What is this in the
Yeah.
context of other papers on this subject?
Well, and it's so easy too, I think, to get so caught up in like the absolute miscarriage of science that goes on in creationist circles that you can sometimes like forget all of the awesome, incredibly intelligent people that are out there doing legitimate science from all walks of life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then it's almost refreshing to get back to it and be like, oh, cool. And you're looking at a paper not from a standpoint of, oh, this is just yet another reason that creationism is bunk, but you're looking at it from perspective of, oh, cool. I can just enjoy this paper because it's a cool paper,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so it's like, yeah, I think it's like diving, right? Like you can't don't spend too much time down there.
Yeah, I agree. The secret project is kind of like that, or the first secret project
This
is yeah. It's just yeah.
okay.
I could probably tell you afterwards, but
Okay, yeah,
there
yeah,
are there are people watching currently.
yeah.
Um,
They're not allowed to know.
they're not allowed to know, not yet.
Okay.
But they'll know. They'll all know.
They'll all they'll get there.
One day you'll all see, right? Um, it's just like reading papers to make sense of them in the context of actual reality. And okay, you have these researchers over here who are saying this one thing. You have these others who are saying this kind of thing, which kind of disagrees with them in some respects, maybe not in others. And you have this other group over here, and so it's kind of like they're not necessarily getting in fist fights over it, over individual taxa, but they're kind of all trying to put the pieces together in different ways, and so it's building this bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's so fun too, right? Because it's like you're involved in a conversation that's actually moving things forward.
right?
You know, where you're like, "Oh, okay, you know, so, you know, what is it that drove eusociality in arthropods or like, you know, why do we see such bizarre sexual dimorphism across numerous different, you know, families and genera and sometimes within, you know, the same genera. Like it's awesome and cool in and of itself. But it's also fun to sometimes, you know, get into the dredges and be like, okay, I'm in a bad mood. Let's watch an AIG video.
Yeah, I guess some people are just sadistic like that, and they think because you had said that on the emails like, yeah, the patience. I'm like, no, I don't. Patience is. I don't think that's the word I would describe it.
Composure. Composure. You're
I
composed. Well, both my dogs, I told you they were both lazy. They're both sitting here. Like, my older one is just snoring. I hope you can't hear her. She's like,
I don't know.
so
I didn't know.
The composure, though. You have the composure to like soak in all the bullshit and then be like, okay, I'm zen, I'm cool. Here's why you're wrong.
Well, and as I said there, it also depends on is this a bad faith actor I'm talking to, or um or is it someone who's actually interested? Because Kent Hovind, it doesn't matter how many times someone, as you said earlier, the only reason to talk to Kent Hovind is to show his fans he's full of crap. He doesn't know anything. There's no reason to talk to him in and of itself.
Yeah, and I've gotten a couple of messages from people after that debate who are kind of Hovindites who have been like, one or two are kind of nasty, and that's fine because I tend to not be a very nasty person unless someone is kind of nasty first, and then I'm kind of like, okay, cool, the gloves are off. Let's talk about why you have about 6 brain cells that are all ponging off of themselves doing the best.
Right.
But I've gotten a few good faith individuals who have been like, hey, I'm a creationist, but I'm coming here with an open mind. Like, what do you think about this? Can you give me an example of this? And for those individuals, I'm like, even if I don't change their mind, like having a conversation with someone who genuinely wants to know more, I'm like, absolutely every time. I would love to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see where it leads. Maybe it'll go somewhere, maybe it won't. Either way, maybe we'll both get something out of it. Just a better mutual understanding of one another. I don't anticipate my mind is going to change anytime soon, but
Right.
with that said, understanding where people are coming from, I can always get more of that.
Well, sure, and it's debates are show.
Yeah.
It's who can talk. Who can be the most charismatic. While they talk.
Yeah.
Which I mean, you definitely beat Ken on that front. So uh,
It's nice. It's easy to do that when you're not running off of a script that everyone watching has heard 1,000 times before, you know?
yeah, that's true. But with you know, if you just do a conversation with some, oops, tapped it. Just having a conversation with someone is totally something else because when you're doing debate, it's always you're both, on the offensive. You're not trying to work through these things. You're trying to rebut them because you don't
Right.
want to have to, fit it into your conception of reality, and so that's why they're really not.
Well, and I'm not really a big fan of like the style of a formalized debate where it's like, okay, I think openers are great because it kind of sets up for like what you're going to talk about, and
Mm,
it gives me a chance to be long-winded about things that I like to talk about. But after that, I think like an open discussion is ideal because if it's just saying this and then rebutting, and then I get 5 minutes and then you can rebut for 5 minutes, then it's very easy for one party to just completely ignore what the other one is saying. And you don't have the ability to interrupt and be like, hey, wait a second, you didn't touch on this or you didn't touch on that.
right, right.
So, and I think a discussion is kind of a better a better method of communicating ideas than a formal debate is.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
yeah. They can just gish gallop, which is what Hovind does. He doesn't try to um doesn't really try to answer anything. Although he did try to answer one thing in my debate with him. I mentioned one of his. I don't know if he stole it from Walt Brown because I've never read directly any Walt Brown stuff because I don't have the brain cells to waste on it.
yeah,
Uh,
we don't
but
all have that to spare.
right, um, but he mentioned he said during his little lecture, lots of quotes, that mammoths couldn't have been cold weather critters. To which you might think, huh? My first thought was, okay, are there. I didn't even think about, like. I was thinking, okay, if obviously the fur is not giving it away for you, the thick coats of fur that animals in the tropics don't have, what will? So I thought, okay, maybe pollen. Maybe they have pollen spores from Arctic plants in their teeth or dung, whatever. As it happens, absolutely, they certainly do.
Shocker. It's almost like they were eating them, a part of that ecosystem.
Right, but um, the thing that he went for, because I mentioned that during like my thing, and then he rebutted with, they didn't have sebaceous glands, so the fur would have just matted together. To which I was like, So I ran to the internet. 10 seconds. It took me at most 10 seconds. Mammoth sebaceous glands. Oh, look, there's a paper on identifying mammoth sebaceous glands. And I read the abstract. And I said, I don't know what, I think you need to update your sources on that one. And
there's that other one too where he shows the mammoth that has two different dates
oh my God.
derived from it, and it's just complete horseshit. You know?
He knows it. He knows it.
Yeah, he's been corrected on that so many times. Or one of my favorite debates that I've seen that involves Hovind is with the late Bill Ludlow, because he calls him out on this growth of the zygomatics. Like he's like, oh, Neanderthals, they just look like that. They just have these big brow ridges because they were proto-humans and they lived to be like 500 years old, and your zygomatics never stopped growing. And so Bill was like, okay, can you show me in any literature where like an 80-year-old has bigger zygomatics than like a 30-year-old? And he's like, oh, well, no, it would only be noticeable after hundreds of years. And then Bill's like, okay, can you show me like a 300-year-old human? Like at all? And Kent's like, oh, well, no, they would have large zygomatics. And it's like,
the evidence is the claim, I guess.
dude, what are you talking about? And then in the same, like in the debate with me, in comes the zygomatics claim, and I was like, I literally don't have time to address this. Like he's been corrected on it. It doesn't matter if I correct him again. He's still going to keep using it, and it wasn't very pertinent. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. And then he starts talking about having large zygomatics or brow ridges has to do with like diet. No, that's a sagittal crest. Like if you eat coarse foods, you got a big crest.
Oh my
God! He
God!
thought it had to do with the zygomatics, like the brow ridge. That's where muscles anchored.
Oh my God! He thought the muscles anchor to the forehead.
Yeah, I was like, what? I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, so like, what is he thinking here? And then I thought, well, maybe he means like the masseter, because that's like back here. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily like in a gorilla where it comes all the way up to the sagittal crest. But then I was like, but wait, the brows are still up here. What are you talking about?
Bruh, what are you talking about?
Kid, baby, you gotta update this literature, please.
Yeah, Tony Reed made a good point that you could take any debate, lecture, whatever from Kent Hovind pre-jail and post-jail, you just switch them. He has never... I don't think he's ever changed his shtick. I think it's the same shtick forever.
I heard from Steve McRae that he has indeed been corrected on like one or two things that he no longer uses. I don't know what those things are.
The expanding sun. You're right.
Okay.
Oh no, sorry. It was the shrinking sun, because he used to think this stupid old creationist claim that the sun is shrinking, but now he's just flipped it. Now the sun is expanding forever. So, or at an abnormally large rate or whatever. But yeah.
Well, they do that same thing with lunar recession. You know, I mean, they do this whole deal where it's like, oh well, if the moon must have been receding at the same rate. Forgetting the fact that the gravitational pull of the Earth changes and fluctuates with how the continents are actually arranged. So it's different with Pangea than it would be with everything all spread out, or when everything's underwater in like, I don't know, Ediacaran. but in the same breath, he turns around and talks about how radioactive decay rates are different. It's like it's only constant when they want it to be constant.
Right.
Then, I mean, oh man, it wears me out.
Yeah, it's you can never. And the mammoth carbon dating thing. Yeah, he's all about... Josiah Hansen mentions that... Yeah, he loves to talk about dating things that died like yesterday.
Yeah.
We did mention the mammoth one because he... actually, Steve McRae did a whole hangout where they went through the paper that Hovind references, and they're like, these are two different samples.
Yeah.
I don't know where you got the idea that this was the same sample.
I mean, scientific literacy, right, is a thing. Like some papers are out there are hard to read and they're really dense. And, I'll be the first one to say that I've read papers. I read a paper on the diversification of platyrines that was like, it was very heavy on genetics, and I hadn't looked at genetics in a long time. And I was like, oh my God, this is taking me forever to slog through. It was like 30 pages long. It was like a big boy.
Mm-hmm.
But to not check the methods and the results, it either shows a gross incompetence when it comes to reading like a rather straightforward paper, because I've also looked at that paper and it's not very complicated, or a touch of dishonesty. Like, and I'm not going to say which is which, because it's like far be it from me, I guess.
I would never hazard a guess as to which it is in Kent's case. Never, ever.
Yeah, but hello, my name is Kent Hovind, starting a thesis does give me cause for pause. It does make me think, okay, maybe there is a little illiteracy with the scientific papers middling around in there. Just because that absolutely almost floors me more than anything else. I think about it and I get angry.
I think yeah, you're right. The thought of starting a thesis with "Hello, my name is" just it's like that's enough to make like any grad student just burst into flames.
Yeah, or an undergrad student, or a fucking high schooler who's submitting their essay on the Canterbury Tales, like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. With undergrads, it's like a lot of them are going into like nursing or dentistry or something, and so they're just kind of like, with regard to that kind of stuff. But yeah, it just.
I couldn't believe my eyes. I really want to get. I don't know if you saw too, but someone asked where they could find Kent's CV in like the Q&A section of our debate, and Kent just. I really genuinely think he just pretended not to know what a CV was.
I taught high school science for 15 years.
And I was kind of looking like, I was like looking at James's little picture in the bottom to see if he was like as incredulous as I was. And he was kind of doing that thing where he's like, I am.
Yeah, I love James because he's very diplomatic.
He is. He's a good guy.
And so he's just kind of like, should we press? Should we not? Maybe no. Let's just move on.
I know, and I love too when James is like, he'll read the questions that have to do with like Kent getting absolutely spanked by Aaron, and he'll read them in such a diplomatic way too. Where I was like, trying not to laugh. I was like, good question, and on the inside, I was like, good God, Kent is.
Whoops.
Oh, hold on.
There we go. We're good again. I say that I'm going to say this now, internet gods. Actually, the internet has been doing very well. This whole talk.
Okay.
The talk I did with PZ actually like dropped in the middle and started streaming a second time. And so I ended up with 2 videos, which I realized later because I got on there and I was like, why is this doubled? 27 minutes, huh? And then I realized, oh, that's what happened. But
God, yeah, connections are very irritating. Mine gets kind of spotty at my folks' house over on one end of the house, and which coincidentally is where my room is. So I kind of have to get really close, move things close to the wall.
I don't know if you can see it. There's a little white thing right there. Yeah. That's the internet extender up here because I'm in the same kind of situation where on the opposite corner of the house is where the internet comes from.
Yeah, the modem or whatever.
Yeah, and so here I am, and I got that so that I wouldn't drop out incessantly, and yet it's
been good though. Yeah, it's been good. It's stayed pretty solid.
Yeah.
No complaints.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We should probably stop acknowledging it, otherwise it'll just.
Yeah. Good plan.
It'll be like the what is it, like the Babel fish, or whatever, or when God creates a Babel fish, he disappears in a puff of logic.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's a good point. Poof.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my God.
I think you're gonna do fine in your standing for truth debate because it's standing. He's
Yeah.
He's he's not he doesn't really know much of anything. If you you can't really with like the Kent Hovens of the world, the Standing for Truth, he's in the exact same camp. You can't bring up specifics because they don't do specifics. Once they get off their script,
Yeah.
that's it. They're done. If you try to talk to Kent about index fossils, because all the most he knows about index fossils is they date the rocks by the fossils and the fossils by the rocks. See, it's all circular. See,
You can't prove that that fossil had any babies.
yeah. Once you start trying to talk to them about, okay, why is this species of foraminifera in this layer and only this layer, and why is this other species in the layer directly above it and a different species in the one below it, or, you know, and they start going, "Doi."
Kent likes the ecological sorting where he's like, oh well, the smarter animals will run higher, and then I'm like, okay, so you're gonna tell me that that a Utah raptor, which very likely were pack hunters and had at least some level of coordination amongst their groups, is stupider than like a field mouse or like a sheep and couldn't make it up? Like,
Right.
Kent, what?
Or
Like,
oh yeah, sorry.
yeah, no, that's all I was gonna say. It's that, and then there's the hydrologic sorting where it's like also drives me crazy. It's like you're finding mosasaurs like in layers that are way above,
It's
itty
kind of like
bitty.
right in the middle, you know.
Yeah,
Why are these the on hydrologic sorting whatever? Shouldn't the largest things be at the is it at the bottom or the top? I can't remember which one.
it depends on which argument he's using.
Oh well,
It
it's
it really
yeah.
does. It's different depending on what we're talking
What
about.
day of the week it is, what he had for breakfast. Yeah, I would love to ask him. You know, why is it that the ammonite Pachydiscus newburgensis is only found in the Maastrichtian epoch of the late Cretaceous?
He'd be like,
If you could please give us an answer as to that, that would be very handy.
he'd kind of sit there and then he'd go, so you're, hold on, one topic at a time. So you're telling me you believe that a pine tree and a whale are related?
I love when he says, when he's like, okay, we're going to use smaller words for the audience. It's like, wait, hold on. You're always talking about how big of a science guy you are. You can't. I mean, I understand. I understand. Uh, there are people you could talk to, and you can shop talk with them. And the other people might not understand what you're saying. You can kind of not necessarily dumb it down. You can kind of explain what the shop talk means,
Yeah.
but you can still shop talk with somebody. They Hovind can't do that. He literally can't.
His conversation with King Crocoduck
Oh man.
is what also it's really up there on my favorites
Yeah.
because the constant can you explain this to the audience for like terms in astrophysics, it's okay to say you don't know it, Kent.
Right.
Like,
Right.
but
Yeah.
not understanding, like, even like I took the very basic amount of I took physics 1 and I took physics 2, right? It's like it's not that much physics and it's not very hard. And like I could follow the vast majority of what Crocoduck was saying, um, which is concerning
Yeah.
for Kent because it's like it's just he was explaining it in such layman's terms too. I don't understand how he wasn't making that connection, but whatever, none of my business.
Right. Yeah. I'm not a Yeah. I'm not a physics person. I could reasonably kind of work out what he was saying. Well, that's intriguing. Um. But yeah. But yeah. I'm not huge into physics. I think it's kind of interesting, but it's not really my thing. It's
I like reading about the discoveries that come about by using physics, but I don't want to see the equations.
I think
Don't show
biophysics is
me.
kind of neat. You know, the people who have to figure out the evolution of things like the ATP synthase or the bacterial flagellum, they have to use physics and chemistry, and these people are just a million IQ points. you know.
Man, I don't know how they do that because it's like it took me the longest time to get through like, understanding all the numerous and various metabolic processes, that occur at cellular level. and understand, like, not just memorizing them, but understanding how they're occurring and how they relate to, different hormones or neurotransmitters or whatever, what have you. And these guys, like, they're innovators on that front. And to
Mm-hmm.
be an innovator, you don't just have to know it, you have to know it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, these guys must be like galaxy brain, up here. And I'm
Right.
like, you know what? I'm okay at my spot. As long as you tell me how you tell me about your cool results, I'm cool with it.
I'll take what is the Krebs cycle for
Yeah.
500.
Can you, do you know what ATP is? Yes.
Yes, I do. I got it. I got that one down.
That's my stopping. That's where I get off. Like, that's my stop.
Right. Yeah. The biochemistry and is is interesting. Biochemistry and biophysics. Um, they're very interesting. And you're right. It does take very intelligent people to do that. I'm like, no, I'll just take my phylogenetics. I wanna
Show me.
see who is more closely related to who and when their common ancestor was. I think I'll do that
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah, that's more complicated than mine. I like to watch monkeys and see what they do and then try to figure out why they do it.
I mean, I think that kind of stuff is
behavioral
awesome.
behavioral observation is like, it's like the easiest. We had to do like labs on hormone examination for like cortisol and rank, and it's very interesting and it's cool, and I'm glad that I know how to do it. But they were like, you can do a hormone study if you want. I was like, no, no. I just want to go out there and plant my ass down and Jane Goodall all this shit. Just watch what they do, and maybe figure out the social brain along the way. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe figure out, the whole of why sociality occurs in primates. I'm just gonna get it all done
I'm
before
just gonna
dinner.
do that. That's my side project.
That's the side project, huh?
Yeah, that's in my spare time.
I don't know. I think that this stuff is fascinating. I kind of considered like changing my major to anthropology when I was taking chemistry at LSU Baton Rouge. Nope, phone's not gonna do it. Nope. All right, that's enough of that. I tried. I tried to plug my
Yeah,
phone in.
LSU is a pretty good vet school. Yeah.
Baton Rouge, yeah, it's mostly it's medicine and agriculture. That's their
Mm.
big, it's what their big thing is about. But I'm not doing medicine or agriculture. So, but yeah,
Bullet dodged.
it was do what?
Bullet dodged.
Bullet dodged, right? Yep. No, yeah, none of that. Not dealing with dang cows, you know, rooting
Yeah,
through
I
their crap and all that.
I am not a big fan of livestock. I had to work with quite a bit of livestock for my animal science degree because
Oh, I
there's
bet.
at the University of Arkansas, so there was like quite a bit, which we actually get reciprocity at LSU for you guys as vet school because we don't have our own. But yeah, I had to work with sheep, and like, they are so stupid. It's like working with sheep is the worst thing ever. We had to do a test on them and then deworm them, and they don't like that, and I don't like it. And then one of them ran out in the rain, and I tried to stop it, and then the male ram came and like just absolutely destroyed me with his horns. He
Oh
just
my
ran.
gosh.
I was on the ground. I was crying. He was crying. I don't like sheep.
I don't blame you. Yeah, it's like I don't like you having worms just as much as you don't like it.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a bad time for everyone involved. My professor thought it was really funny, though. He's like a good old boy. So he was like, yeah, you got to be real careful around those rams. They'll fuck you up. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of an understatement. Would have been really nice to know that the ram was like on the loose in the pasture before I just went out there. But, live and learn, I guess.
Watch out, the bulls out there too. Yeah, that kind of that him laughing. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of There's like a video of this physics professor, and so he has a pendulum, and he has or well he's like sitting against his desk, and there's a student, and she takes the pendulum and like puts it against her nose, and then lets it go, and the idea is it's not going to come back and hit her, but instead of standing there, she leans forward a little bit,
Oh my
and so
god.
it comes back, goes wham,
It
and
goes
he's just laughing, and she has like a broken nose. No, She just got whacked in the face with this giant metal ball, and he's just like, ha, physics.
You know how to not do it again. There you go. That's learning. Oh
Ha,
my
that's how physics works, kids.
There
Test
you
on Monday.
go.
Yeah,
Oh
Jesus.
god.
Oh well, I've run out of well, I ran out of questions on the paper. I'm sure we could talk for several more hours, but it's almost 3 hours already, and it's going
Yeah.
to take YouTube half an hour to process this.
That's how YouTube rolls. Yeah. My parents have poked in twice to be like, "Are we gonna watch some more episodes of Man in the High Castle?" They're like soaking in the whole, the eldest child is home, and my sister's soaking it in too because I haven't seen her. She's the attention's off her, so she's like fucking gone, dude. She's like
Bye, I'm going
this.
to hang out with guys. Bye.
Yeah, that's literally yeah. She had a. I'm just gonna put her on blast. She like had a date tonight, so as the
Oh.
elder sibling, it was up to me to make the entire experience very embarrassing. So I told them to have a lit time, which is I'm sure very hip with the kids still.
Uh, are you kids going to look at vines when you go out? Is that's still a thing, right? Vines on your MySpace? You kids
you
like
kids,
MySpace?
you kids, yeet on out of here, okay?
Oh my goodness.
Well, I had a great time. Thank you for having me on. We ought to have. I could literally talk about this shit for decades. I hope to make a career out of it.
Hey, me
Just
too.
talking about primates. That's the dream and evolution in general. So
I feel you. I really only get to wax about this stuff once a week on RJ's show, which you should come on.
I would love to.
RJ's Evolution Hour Wednesday at what time is it now? 9 Central, 9 p.m. Central. For right now, because I had class, which I mean we had to do. I had a night class, so we had to do it afterwards. But we can.
Yeah.
It was at 7 Central originally.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah, that would be so fun. I'm intimidated by Archie. I've never had a conversation with him. He knows his stuff. He's like the guy.
Yes, RJ knows everything. He's a walking encyclopedia.
Yeah, that I 100% have no trouble believing.
Uh, but RJ's fantastic. I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have chosen to write a book about creationism with anybody else.
Yeah, I don't think you could have picked anybody better either.
Yeah. Thank goodness I think he carried most of it. So, alrighty. Well, if you could stick around for one moment after we end the stream, but for everyone watching, there's 22 people right now. Haha. How about that?
Woo.
Uh,
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Go subscribe to Erica's channel at the Gutsick Gibbon and follow her on Twitter also, because she's on there now. I got you a few followers.
Shannon Q. Shannon gave me the courage to embrace Twitter once again.
Yeah, definitely. I got you a couple followers.
I know. You guys have been like, all the big boys have been shouting me out. I don't know.
I wish I was one of the big boys.
Oh, come on.
You got to go on. Like... No. If you want to, the big boys, go on like Paul's channel, because Paul had me on, and that really, I went from like 300 to 1,000 subscribers over the course of less than a week. So
Paul knows his stuff too. He's such a sweet guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. I got to meet him. I got to meet him and Shannon in person at the Faithless Forum things. That was pretty cool.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
More things to do to put on your bucket list.
Yeah, absolutely.
Erica's channel is the Gutsick Gibbon. I will include that in the down there, the doobity doo after after we close out and everything after this, because it's gonna take like half an hour for this stream to get processed. All right. Well, thanks again. Thanks everybody for watching. But stay right there for a second. Bye everybody. Well, what did I say? Oh, we'll see you next time.